Across the globe, some relics and monuments seem impossible. Objects crafted with precision that should not have been achievable. Structures aligned with the stars long before modern tools existed, and artifacts whose purpose remains unknown. They are the fingerprints of civilizations that understood the world in ways we still struggle to grasp. In this visual exploration, you will uncover some of the most extraordinary discoveries from ancient times, each carrying secrets that continue to baffle scientists. From hidden messages carved into stone to devices that predicted the heavens, these discoveries challenge what we think we know about the past and invite you to wonder, how much knowledge have we truly lost? The Antikythera mechanism, the machine that knew the heavens. The waters around the Greek island of Antikythera are quiet now, but beneath their calm surface lies the remains of a shipwreck that once carried a cargo unlike anything else in the ancient world. It was found by sponge divers in 1900, its bronze treasures brought up one by one from a depth of 45 meters, each piece eaten away by centuries under salt and sand. Among the statues, coins and amphorae, one small corroded mass caught little attention at first. It looked like nothing more than a lump of rock and rust. Yet hidden inside it was a mechanism so advanced that it would take a generation to understand it, and even now, the full truth of its purpose remains just out of reach. For years, the find rested in a museum storeroom in Athens, indistinguishable from countless other fragments of ancient debris. Then, in 1902, the archaeologist Valerios Stais noticed something impossible. Embedded in the corrosion were the faint outlines of finely cut bronze gears, their teeth perfectly spaced, and their circles nested like the movements of a clock. This was not a decoration or an accident, it was a machine. The discovery seemed absurd, out of place, among relics from a time when such precision engineering should not have existed. Decades passed before its complexity was truly grasped. Early attempts to reconstruct it were hindered by damage and missing parts, but X-ray imaging in the 1970s revealed the truth. Inside the greened metal fragments lay more than 30 interlocking gears, some smaller than a coin, each cut by hand with astonishing accuracy. The mechanism had dials, inscriptions, and tiny markings that appeared to track the movements of celestial bodies. This was not a simple tool, but a complete astronomical calculator, designed more than 2,000 years ago. The mechanism's origins were traced to around the 2nd century BCE, during the height of Greek scientific thought. Its craftsmanship rivaled that of modern watchmakers, yet no other example of such technology existed from the ancient world. The gears modelled the cycles of the sun and moon, predicted eclipses, and tracked the positions of the planets known at the time. Its backdials recorded the Metonic and Saros cycles, sophisticated astronomical patterns used to predict eclipses over decades. Turning one handle could reveal the configuration of the heavens for any chosen date. In a sense, it was a window into time itself. Who could have built such a device? Scholars have debated this question for over a century. Some trace its design to the school of Archimedes, the mathematician and inventor from Syracuse, whose genius for mechanics was legendary. Others suggest the influence of Hipparchus of Nicaea, the astronomer who calculated the length of the year and the precession of the equinoxes. The inscriptions on the mechanism's bronze plates, written in Greek, refer to astronomical cycles that suggest deep familiarity with Babylonian and Egyptian observation methods. Yet no text from antiquity describes a device so elaborate, and no workshop capable of producing it has ever been found. The ship that carried it may have been a merchant vessel travelling from the eastern Mediterranean to Rome, loaded with luxury goods. The wreck contained statues and glassware that point to a wealthy owner, perhaps even a Roman noble collecting wonders from the Greek world. Some fragments of the mechanism show signs of repair, as though it had been used, maintained, and valued. It may have served as an educational instrument, a tool for teaching celestial order, or even a personal possession meant to impress with its mastery of the cosmos. The more it is studied, the deeper its mystery becomes. Inscriptions still partially deciphered describe phases of the moon, dates of athletic games, and references to the zodiac. The letters are so small and carefully engraved that they seem intended for someone who already understood the device's language. No two components appear to have been made by chance. Even the gear ratios correspond precisely to known astronomical cycles, suggesting that its maker possessed both mathematical knowledge and mechanical artistry of an almost modern kind. What remains most astonishing is the gap it represents in human history. Nothing else like it appears in the record for more than 1,000 years. After the Antikythera mechanism, there is silence. The technology seems to vanish, leaving no lineage, no descendants, no explanation. Only in the 14th century do similar mechanisms appear in Europe, and even those lack the same refinement. It is as if the knowledge that produced it flickered into being for one brief moment, then disappeared completely. Modern reconstructions using 3D scans and digital modelling have managed to restore much of its function. The surviving gears have been mapped and reassembled into a working replica that can predict lunar eclipses, track planetary motion, and display the phases of the moon as seen from Earth. Yet questions linger that no simulation can answer. How was it machined with such precision using the tools of the Hellenistic age? Why does no record mention its design? And what inspired its creation at a time when the known world still measured time by the turning of the seasons and the rise of stars? Some suggest that it was the result of isolated genius, a lone craftsman drawing on fragments of knowledge from across the ancient world. Others believe it belonged to a broader but lost tradition of mechanical astronomy, erased by war, conquest, and the slow decay of civilizations. If that is true, then the Antikythera mechanism is not a miracle of coincidence, but a relic of an entire science that vanished before history began to keep proper record. Even now, divers return to the wreck site, exploring its scattered debris in search of more pieces. Every few years, new fragments are found, some no larger than coins, their inscriptions offering glimpses of functions still unknown. Each discovery deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. The sea has hidden its secrets well, but not completely. The machine rests in its glass case in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens, its gears frozen in green silence. It is a fragment of a forgotten knowledge that once measured the heavens with mechanical grace, proof that the past was far more complex than we ever imagined. Somewhere in the ancient world, there may have been others. The Great Pyramid of Giza, geometry of the impossible. Under the pale Egyptian sky, the Great Pyramid rises not as a monument to the past, but as an argument against time itself. Its limestone edges catch the morning light in silence, as they have for nearly 5,000 years, their geometry precise enough to baffle any sense of decay. The desert around it has shifted, swallowed cities and graves, but the pyramid stands untouched by centuries of wind and sand. To approach it is to confront an order so absolute it feels unnatural, a harmony that neither nature nor chance could have composed. Historians agree on its name, but not on its truth. They call it the Pyramid of Khufu, raised around 2560 BCEE to serve as a royal tomb, though no body was ever found within its vast heart. The records of its construction are few, and what survives comes from distant memory, copied by later scribes who could only guess at how such perfection was achieved. Ancient writers described armies of labourers and endless ramps of stone, yet even their accounts tremble beneath the weight of what stands before them. No written record from the builders themselves has ever been uncovered, and no tool has been found that could explain how the pyramid stones were shaped and set with such impossible precision. Archaeological traces suggest that nearby quarries supplied the limestone, but the granite used in the king's chamber came from Aswan, nearly 800 kilometres away, a journey that would have required an unknown system of transport and coordination. Every measurement, every angle defies error. Each side of the base stretches more than 230 metres, yet they differ by less than a few centimetres. The four faces are aligned almost exactly to the cardinal points of the compass, a feat requiring an understanding of Earth's rotation that should not have existed. The slope of its sides, the ratio of its height to its circumference, and the angle of its internal passages all echo mathematical constants that seem far beyond the reach of the ancient world. Even when stripped of its original polished casing stones, once gleaming white under the desert sun, the core geometry remains flawless, unmoved by the centuries. Countless theories have tried to lift its stones in imagination. Scholars have drawn ramps curling upward, pulleys anchored in sand, and armies of workers heaving in unison. Yet none of these visions account for the precision that holds the structure together. Some suggest wooden cranes or levers, others picture water channels buoying the blocks into place. But none explain the absence of error. the symmetry that endures under thousands of tons of pressure. The stones are set so tightly that a blade cannot pass between them. Even now, engineers struggle to reproduce such accuracy with modern equipment. The mystery is not only how it was built, but how such perfection was even conceived. Modern scanning has revealed subtle internal stresses distributed evenly across its layers, suggesting that its builders understood structural load in ways only rediscovered by modern engineering. Yet even the heavens seem drawn into its design. The pyramid's layout mirrors celestial order, as if the architects mapped the stars themselves onto the desert floor. The shafts within its inner chambers align precisely with the constellation Orion and the North Star, as they appeared 5 millennia ago, suggesting that the builders possessed both astronomical understanding and instruments of extraordinary precision. Some scholars believe it was meant to guide the soul of the pharaoh to the stars. Others see in it a model of the cosmos, a symbolic meeting of earth and sky. But the alignments are too exact to be dismissed as a symbolic coincidence. Its measurements reflect not merely art or ritual, but an awareness of universal proportion that science is still unable to explain. Inside, the silence becomes a kind of language. Narrow corridors lead to chambers whose purposes remain uncertain. The king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and the grand gallery, each aligned in mathematical harmony with the pyramid's geometry. The air shafts cut through solid stone with impossible accuracy, yet they serve no practical purpose. There are no inscriptions, no scenes of the afterlife or gods, no hieroglyphs to tell the story of what the structure meant. Only bare stone, smooth and deliberate, as if designed not to communicate but to conceal. Modern explorations using robots and ground-penetrating scans have revealed hidden cavities and voids deep within the structure, their shapes unknown, their contents undisturbed since antiquity. Whatever waits inside remains sealed, silent, and untouched. Time has tried to erode its meaning but failed. Empires have risen and fallen at its feet. Desert winds have shifted dunes and buried entire civilizations, yet the pyramid endures, immune to decay. It is both artifact and anomaly, the one constant in a landscape of vanishing things. Some believe its geometry encodes lost knowledge of mathematics or astronomy. Others see it as the culmination of an age of builders whose methods were destroyed by time itself. To stand before it is to sense that it was made not only to endure but to remind, the stone equivalent of an equation written by hands that understood something about the Earth that modern science has yet to rediscover. It remains the oldest of the 7 wonders, and the only one still standing, a monument whose silence speaks louder than history. The closer scholars come to understanding its design, the further its meaning seems to recede, as though it was built not for the dead but for those who would one day try to understand it. Its geometry resists interpretation, its precision laughs at explanation, and its endurance defies time itself. Something waits within its symmetry that refuses to be named. The Baghdad Battery, sparks from the past. Amid the dust of Kujut Rabu, near ancient Ctesiphon, archaeologists uncovered a series of clay jars during excavations in the 1930s. They were unremarkable at first glance, modest vessels buried among fragments of pottery and corroded tools. Yet one of these jars stood apart, its interior fitted with a copper cylinder and capped with an iron rod, as though designed for a purpose far beyond simple storage. Time had stripped away any markings or inscriptions, leaving only the mystery of its construction. What appeared at first to be a simple jar soon revealed properties that unsettled the boundaries of ancient understanding. The archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, who discovered it, recognized the strange composition and questioned why such a combination of materials would exist together in a 2000-year-old context. When the jar was examined more closely, the internal copper tube and the central iron pin showed signs of corrosion consistent with chemical reaction, suggesting that something had once flowed between them. It was this detail that transformed an ordinary relic into an archaeological enigma. Within its clay body rested a copper cylinder, perfectly fitted and sealed at the bottom with bitumen, an ancient tar used throughout Mesopotamia. The iron rod extended through the mouth of the jar, but was also coated with bitumen, insulating it from the copper surrounding it. This arrangement, simple yet precise, mirrors the structure of a modern galvanic cell. No inscriptions accompany the object, no diagrams explain its purpose. It sits in silence, but its geometry speaks of intention. When replicas were built decades later, faint currents were detected. Researchers filled them with vinegar or grape juice, both weak acids, and watched as the primitive cells generated measurable electricity, small but undeniable. The experiment raised a question that history was unprepared to answer. Could people living 2 millennia ago have understood electrical energy, long before its rediscovery in the modern era? The result did not prove ancient technology, but it shattered the assumption of its impossibility. The possibility of an ancient electrical device challenged accepted timelines of scientific development. Electricity, as formalized by figures like Volta and Faraday, was supposed to be the product of the Enlightenment, a discovery born of reason and controlled experimentation. Yet here was evidence of a principle replicated without written theory, an understanding buried in clay long before it should have existed. Whether by accident or design, the jar defied every definition of what was thought achievable in that age. Some researchers proposed that it served as a tool for electroplating, perhaps used to deposit thin layers of metal on small objects, granting them a sheen of gold or silver. Ancient craftsmen were known for their skill in ornamentation, and such a device could have offered a subtle technological edge. In laboratories, the replica cells successfully plated coins with thin metallic coatings, proving that the reaction was not only possible but practical. Others believed its function was ceremonial, a symbolic vessel used in religious or alchemical practice. Electricity may have been a byproduct rather than an intention, a mysterious force observed without explanation. In temples and workshops, where fire, magnetism, and strange minerals already held spiritual meaning, a jar that produced unseen energy could have been viewed as a conduit to the divine. The same civilization that mapped the stars and built ziggurats to touch the heavens might have sought to harness invisible forces in ways now forgotten. Each hypothesis, however, fails to account for the precision of its construction. The materials were chosen with care, the fit exact, the insulation deliberate. These details imply not chance but comprehension, an understanding that cannot be easily dismissed as coincidence. If the object was merely symbolic, why perfect its design so completely? The closer one looks, the harder it becomes to separate purpose from mystery. In the broader context of Mesopotamian science, this discovery feels misplaced. The Babylonians recorded planetary movements, developed complex mathematical systems, and measured time with remarkable accuracy. Yet their known writings contain no clear references to electricity or electrochemical reactions. The battery stands outside the record, an orphaned artifact belonging to a chapter of science that may have been written and lost before recorded history began. Clay tablets from nearby regions mention magnetism and minerals that attract or repel one another, subtle hints that ancient scholars had already noticed the unseen behavior of materials. Some even describe rituals involving static phenomena, like sparks produced when rubbing certain stones or fabrics. While none directly describe a battery, they reveal a curiosity about invisible energies that may have inspired experimentation. The line between ritual and research in antiquity was thin, often indistinguishable. If electricity were truly known, it would redefine our timeline of invention. It would mean that humanity's first encounters with electrical phenomena occurred not in the laboratories of the 18th century but in the workshops of Babylon. It would also suggest that knowledge can be lost, not just forgotten but erased by centuries of conquest, decay and translation. The Baghdad battery would then stand as evidence not of progress but of amnesia. In Baghdad's museum, the object still rests within its glass case, its surface is dimmed by time and its copper turned green. Scholars debate, researchers test, and yet its silence remains intact. The museum's placard calls it a Parthian jar, a name that conceals its controversy, leaving visitors unaware that they stand before one of archaeology's quietest impossibilities. Even in the silence, something unseen, a forgotten current, continues to wait. The Saqqara bird flight before flight. In a museum case lit by pale afternoon light, a small wooden figure rests beneath glass. Its surface is dry, its colour faded to the tone of desert dust, yet its outline draws the eye in an unsettling way. The wings sweep back with deliberate symmetry, the tail drops into a vertical fin rather than the expected spread of feathers, and the body curves like something made to cleave air. Visitors pass by, glancing briefly before moving on to more imposing relics, but those who pause sense that it was not carved only to be seen. It was built to move, though it never will again. Long before it became a relic, a craftsman's hand shaped it from a block of sycamore. The tree itself, sacred to the Egyptians, was believed to bridge worlds, the living and the divine, its wood used for coffins, boats, and objects of spiritual passage. The artisan, working in the quiet of a workshop near Saqqara, would have smoothed the wings until they were thin and even, careful not to break the grain. He carved a slot beneath, perhaps to hold a staff or perch, then laid it aside to dry. It would be placed in a tomb not as a toy, but as something more solemn, an emblem, a promise of flight. Traces of a thin, resin-like substance had been detected within that slot, as though something once fitted there had been sealed in place, a detail easily overlooked but curiously deliberate for a simple tomb offering. When French archaeologist Victor Loret excavated the sprawling necropolis of Saqqara in 1898, his team uncovered the tomb of a priest named Pardi Imen. Among the painted coffins, amulets, and fragments of ritual vessels, they found the small wooden bird. Its age, later dated to around 200 BCE, placed it near the end of Egypt's Ptolemaic era, a period of hybrid knowledge when Greek and Egyptian traditions overlapped. The artifact was catalogued without ceremony and stored away, its mystery unrecognized for decades. Only later would it emerge from the archive, quietly rewriting expectations about ancient design. Centuries later, air flowed over its wings once more. In the 1960s, an Egyptian archaeologist named Khalil Messiha examined the object and noticed what others had overlooked. The tail was vertical like that of a modern aircraft, not horizontal like a bird's. Its proportions, wingspan to length, the slight dihedral angle, were closer to glider designs than avian anatomy. Curiously, researchers built replicas and tested them in wind tunnels at Cairo University. Even without engines, the models generated lift. The object behaved like something that should glide, not merely decorate. When placed against crosswinds, one replica tilted subtly into the airflow and maintained orientation, an aerodynamic response no purely decorative object would exhibit. Some tests even suggested that, with a stabilizing horizontal tailpiece, perhaps now missing, it could have achieved steady flight. To those who carved for the gods, flight was more than motion. The ancient Egyptians imagined the soul's essence, the Ba, as a bird with a human head that could rise from the tomb and travel freely between Earth and the afterlife. Images of winged spirits fill the tombs of Saqqara, moving between columns of painted air. Perhaps the wooden figure was a vessel for that transition, part mechanical, part spiritual, a bridge between physics and faith. If it mimicked something that once flew in the physical world, the distinction might not have mattered. For those who built pyramids aligned to the stars, form and meaning were never separate. Modern engineers, intrigued by its design, tried to reproduce its behavior using advanced simulations. In 2002, one model built by aviation specialists in Germany demonstrated surprising aerodynamic efficiency for its scale. The wing profile produced a lift-to-drag ratio comparable to simple 20th century gliders. Yet skeptics pointed out that similar shapes occur in nature, and coincidence cannot be dismissed. They argued that functional resemblance does not prove functional purpose. Still, the possibility lingered. Was the resemblance accidental, or a glimpse of forgotten experimentation? Perhaps what was lost was not knowledge, but continuity. The craftsman who shaped the Saqqara bird may have understood something about lift and balance through observation alone, watching falcons stoop and ibis drift over the Nile. Generations later, that practical intuition would vanish under waves of conquest and cultural change. When scholars rediscovered the object, the idea of flight had already become legend. The rediscovery, therefore, was not of a machine, but of a forgotten question. How much could intuition achieve when guided by belief rather than mathematics? In ancient rituals, the act of flight was symbolic of renewal. Every morning, the sun itself was thought to take wing, rising from the underworld in the form of a celestial bird. The Saqqara artifact may have been a miniature reflection of that eternal motion, a gesture towards something humans could never fully attain. Within its simple shape lies the suggestion that the boundary between technology and devotion has always been thinner than assumed. Now, it waits again in perfect stillness, suspended between sky and memory. Behind the glass, every curve suggests motion that will never return. Some scientists still debate its function. Was it a child's toy? A ritual offering? a symbolic model, or something meant to fly for real? None of these answers dissolves the sense that it belongs to both worlds, to the hands of the engineer and to the mind of the dreamer. It remains fixed in silence, yet designed for air, as though caught mid-descent between two kinds of understanding. And if it was ever meant to fly, its shadow may still be circling somewhere above time. The Costa Rican stone spheres, the perfection hidden in the jungle. No inscription marks their origin, yet the stones remain. Dozens of flawless spheres scattered across the southern valleys of Costa Rica. They rest in fields once claimed by jungle, in riverbeds, and under layers of sediment that have kept them hidden for centuries. Some were found arranged in loose clusters across low hills, as if once marking pathways or boundaries erased by time. When uncovered, their surfaces gleam faintly with the same precision that defines instruments of modern manufacture. They are both ancient and impossible, belonging to a time that should not have produced them. Nothing about the vanished Ikwi culture hints at the mathematics required to shape them. The people who inhabited the delta left no written language, no record of measurement, no trace of metallurgy advanced enough to carve such forms from volcanic rock. Their art was symbolic, their tools simple, their architecture modest. Yet these stones suggest calculation, an understanding of geometry and symmetry that appears out of place amid the scattered relics of clay and bone. The story begins again in 1939, when a bulldozer's blade rang against stone that refused to yield. The workers, clearing land for the United Fruit Company's banana plantations, struck one sphere, then another. Their discovery spread quickly through the region. Rumours of gold inside the stones led to explosions and damage. Several were cracked open, revealing only solid rock. The sound of their destruction was for a moment louder than the silence that had kept them safe. When archaeologists finally arrived, many of the spheres lay scarred, displaced, or half buried beneath the churned soil. Each sphere is carved from solid gabbro, a rock harder than steel and quarried miles from where they rest. Some measure barely 10 centimetres across, others exceed 2 metres in diameter and weigh several tons. The quarries lie deep in the Talamanca Mountains, suggesting that the stones were moved through dense forest without wheels, beasts of burden, or roads. Transporting even one such mass over that terrain would have required coordination and knowledge of balance, hinting at an organised effort far beyond what is currently attributed to the Dikwis. The absence of tool marks on their surface only deepens the puzzle. To shape them, their makers would have needed to chip and polish the granite slowly, turning it by hand with a precision modern engineers still admire. Under modern measurement, their deviation from perfect roundness is smaller than that of many machine-made globes. Even after centuries of erosion and exposure, their geometry remains almost exact. The level of craftsmanship implies careful calibration, yet no evidence of measuring instruments has been found in the region. To test their uniformity, researchers used laser scanning and three-dimensional modelling only to confirm what the eye already suspected. These spheres were made to be precise. Perfection in this case was not accidental, it was the purpose itself. The explanations offered since then vary as widely as the stones themselves, none convincing. Some scholars propose that they were status symbols, markers of tribal power displayed before temples or dwellings. Others see them as astronomical tools aligned to the movements of the sun, the moon, or constellations once visible above the canopy. A few theorists have gone further, suggesting navigational or ceremonial functions that extend beyond the plausible. Yet every interpretation breaks against the same wall of uncertainty. The Dikwi left no text, no diagrams, not even a consistent pattern of arrangement. The silence left by their makers is not the absence of knowledge. It feels intentional, as if secrecy were part of the design. In several sites, the spheres appear arranged along invisible lines, tracing directions that correspond to solstices or vanished river channels. Elsewhere, they stand alone, their symmetry confronting the chaos of the jungle as though meant to endure it. The more archaeologists uncover, the less they agree on whether the arrangement once held meaning or if the meaning has already been erased. What remains cannot be read, only measured. In the present day, they stand in parks, museums, and gardens, removed from the alignments that once gave them context. Cleaned and catalogued, they seem diminished by the order imposed upon them. In their original locations, half swallowed by foliage and shadow, they carried a different weight. one of quiet defiance against the elements. The jungle, when left to its own rhythm, had not damaged them. It had only hidden them, preserving their mystery from intrusion. Once moved, their perfection feels unnatural, a geometry uprooted from its purpose. Still, the pattern persists, as though the jungle remembers what people have forgotten. Satellite imagery of the Dickwis Delta shows faint traces of circular alignments beneath the soil, formations too deliberate to dismiss as chance. A few unexcavated mounds remain untouched, protected by their isolation and the law that now forbids disturbance. In them, archaeologists suspect more spheres lie buried, sealed beneath centuries of sediment, unbroken and unseen. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed anomalies matching their dimensions, silent spheres that may still rest in perfect alignment beneath the living roots. Each discovery adds to the count, but not to the understanding. Perhaps the stones were not meant to communicate in ways humans understand. They might have served as markers of continuity, representations of cycles, or symbols of divine completeness. Or perhaps they were simply a challenge to time itself, proof that even without words or metal, the human hand could carve perfection from resistance. Whatever their function, their endurance is undeniable. The jungle has changed, rivers have shifted, civilizations have risen and fallen, yet the spheres remain unyielding. As perfect as the first, another waits somewhere beneath the buried forest floor. The Sacsayhuaman walls, stonework beyond tools. High above the city of Cusco, where the Andean air grows thin and the horizon trembles in light, stand the walls of Sacsayhuaman. Their dark, lichen-coated faces catch the changing sun, like the surface of ancient armour, cold and alive beneath the drifting mist. Each stone, some towering higher than a person, others weighing more than 100 tons, fits into the next with impossible precision, edges locked so tightly that no blade can pass between them. The structure looms not as a ruin of collapse but as an argument against time itself, a creation that feels older than its builders and unyielding to every century that has tested it. At first sight, the formation appears random, as if nature had piled these immense shapes by accident. Yet a closer look dissolves that illusion. The pattern reveals intent, rhythm, and command over gravity. Every block interlocks with its neighbours in 3 dimensions, each curve anticipating another's angle, each surface shaped to bear unseen pressure. The layout winds in vast zigzagging terraces, following a geometry that mirrors lightning frozen in stone. No mortar binds them, no visible plan dictates their form. They endure through balance alone, each piece held in place by the invisible precision of its neighbour. When the Spanish conquistadors first reached Cusco in the 16th century, they were awed by these ramparts rising above the city, like the remains of another world. Chroniclers described walls so strong and so admirable that they would seem to have been made by giants. The fortress, they learned, marked what had once been the head of the sacred puma that symbolized Cusco's layout. To the Incas, this was no mere stronghold but a convergence of cosmic and earthly order, a place where the boundaries between the human and divine dissolved. Yet even the Incas claimed the stones had been raised long before their empire, built by an earlier people whose knowledge was already ancient when they arrived. Archaeologists have long debated that claim. Excavations reveal construction phases layered over centuries, suggesting that the site began before the Inca Empire but reached its perfection under Emperor Pachacuti. Still, the mystery of the method remains. To move these stones from the quarries of Yucay over 20 kilometers away and across steep, rugged terrain would have required a system of transport beyond anything recorded. There were no wheels, no draft animals, and no written record of mechanical devices. The only evidence of effort is the terrain itself, marked by faint tracks and depressions where the earth once bore unthinkable weight. To carve and polish the blocks was an even greater challenge. Much of the stone is andesite, harder than granite and brittle under direct impact. Modern engineers attempting to replicate a single joint have failed to achieve the same seamless fit, even using diamond-tipped tools. Under magnification, the surfaces reveal no consistent chisel marks or striations, only smooth concave transitions that appear moulded rather than cut. The hypothesis of stone softening techniques, often dismissed as legend, persists simply because every conventional explanation breaks under scrutiny. How the builders achieved such smooth joins without fracturing the rock remains an unanswered question. Some have looked beyond engineering for clues. The Inca saw stone as a living substance, kamei, infused with spirit. To carve it was an act of communication, not domination. Each block may have been shaped through ritual as much as labour, its placement guided by observation of light, shadow and resonance. Certain corners of Sacsayhuaman align with celestial events. The June solstice sunrise, the December solstice sunset, and the cardinal directions used in Inca ritual architecture. What appears to be a fortress may also be a calendar written in stone, or perhaps a map of the heavens rendered onto the earth. When researchers from the University of Cusco scanned the walls in the early 2000s, they found patterns of curvature and alignment too regular to be accidental. The angles at which the stones meet correspond to precise load-bearing distributions, allowing the structure to flex under seismic stress without cracking. During earthquakes that reduced much of Cusco to rubble, Sacsayhuaman absorbed the shock and settled back into place. The architecture behaves as though it anticipates movement, like a breathing organism adapting to the Earth's shifting pulse. Modern seismic engineers now study it not as a relic, but as a model of resilience. The fortress was also built to observe, not only to defend. From its highest terrace, the view spans the entire Cusco Valley, the rivers, the terraces, the paths that once led to the sacred sites of Chenko and Pucapucara. Scholars have suggested that these sightlines formed part of a ritual network called the Seques, invisible lines radiating from the Temple of the Sun at the city's centre. In that system, Sacsayhuaman was more than a fortress. It was a cosmic node linking mountains, rivers and stars in one great design. To stand within its walls was to stand at the intersection of earth and sky. In modern times, its perfection continues to invite both admiration and disbelief. Visitors trace their hands along the cold seams, searching for flaws that do not exist. The walls have withstood centuries of weather, conquest and neglect, surviving where more recent constructions have failed. Each curve, each junction, resists explanation as if it were shaped not by tools but by intention alone. Even stripped of temples and ornament, the site exerts an authority that silences conversation. It is the kind of silence that feels older than words, older even than the civilization that built it. Sacsayhuaman endures not as a monument to what was known, but to what has been forgotten. Its stones speak without inscription, their language one of balance, precision and endurance. Whether born of mathematics or mystery, of human brilliance or something beyond measure, they stand as proof that perfection once walked this earth and left no trace of how it did. In the cold dawn above Cusco, the walls still seem to hold a secret that no tool has ever touched. The Longyou caves, the subterranean enigma of China. It began with an emptied pond in Zhejiang province. In 1992, villagers in Longyou decided to drain one of the many small, stagnant pools that dotted the region's low hills. The ponds had been there for generations, quiet, unremarkable, thought to be natural basins filled by underground springs. For days the villagers pumped water out, expecting to find mud or bedrock beneath. Instead, as the waterline dropped, a staircase emerged, carved by human hands descending into shadow. What emerged from the drained basin was not nature's hollow, but design. Beneath the pond lay a vast chamber, its walls perfectly smooth, the ceiling supported by stone pillars carved from the same solid rock. The surface bore an intricate pattern of parallel lines, etched with mechanical consistency, as if the builders had treated the stone like canvas. When more ponds were drained nearby, more caverns were revealed, each one immense, precisely constructed, and utterly without precedent. Together they formed a subterranean complex covering thousands of square meters, a hidden architecture older than anyone could guess. Every surface inside the caverns bears the same disciplined touch. The ceilings slope at precise angles, the pillars align with architectural intent, and the walls display uniform chisel marks running in orderly bands. It is the consistency, more than the size, that defies explanation. Modern engineers who studied the patterns found them mathematically regular, suggesting deliberate rhythm and measured tools. Yet the stone, siltstone hardened over millennia, would have required great effort to carve, especially without metal instruments or illumination. Even with modern equipment, shaping such expanses by hand would take years. Whoever built them worked not in haste but in mastery. Nowhere does the record of its making appear. No ancient text, no inscription, No oral history mentions their creation. Dynastic chronicles spanning more than 2,000 years describe temples, canals and fortresses in detail, but not a word about these underground halls. The absence feels impossible in a culture that documents even minor constructions. Their silence leaves the caves suspended in a void of time, older than memory, younger than myth. In the absence of language, only geometry speaks. The structure itself defies the tools known to its supposed age. If the caves date before the Qin dynasty, as some geological clues suggest, their creators would have had only rudimentary iron chisels and lanterns fed by oil. Yet the cuts are clean, the angles exact, the volumes immense. Calculations estimate that over 1 million cubic meters of rock were removed to form the network. No debris field has ever been located. No discarded tools, no quarry nearby, no sign of where the displaced stone was taken. To remove such material without a race implies an effort on a scale unmatched by any comparable site in early Chinese history. Chinese chronicles, meticulous in their detail, make no mention of it. Imperial surveys that catalogued everything from mountain passes to burial mounds omitted the caves entirely. This absence has led scholars to debate whether the chambers were intentionally hidden or later forgotten by design. Some suggest the knowledge of their creation was kept secret by a small community, erased by political collapse or natural disaster. Others propose that they were built for a spiritual purpose. A descent into the earth meant not to be seen again. Whatever their function, the silence of the record is louder than any explanation offered. Those who study its chambers have filled the silence with conjecture. Theories range from royal granaries and flood shelters to tombs and temples, yet none fit the evidence. There are no artifacts, no ashes, no signs of habitation or ritual. The layout of the caverns varies, but each shares identical surface patterns, as though executed by the same hand or the same design principle across vast space. A few researchers have proposed that acoustic properties might have been part of their purpose. The stone walls amplify sound in strange, resonant ways. Voices travel as if through hollow instruments, fading and reappearing in unexpected corners. Even silence feels shaped. Even with light and measurement, the mystery has only deepened. Laser mapping has revealed that the chambers share proportions consistent with classical geometry, ratios found later in Chinese architecture, but inexplicable if the caves predate it. Some align subtly with surrounding hills, tracing orientations to the sunrise on solstices. Others appear isolated, their entrances concealed by natural ridges. Beneath their symmetry lies a question of origin. Were they planned by architects whose methods were lost, or by minds working from principles never recorded? In the decades since their rediscovery, preservation efforts have slowed further excavation. Some chambers remain unexplored, sealed by sediment and groundwater. Those who have entered describe the air as unnaturally still, the sound of their own movement echoing back as if from an earlier age. The carvings remain sharp, the pillars uncracked despite the weight of centuries above them. No plant roots invade, no collapse scars the ceiling. The stone behaves as though it were waiting, untouched by decay or time. Recent surveys using ground-penetrating radar suggest there may be more chambers beyond the known entrances, entire sections hidden beneath the surrounding hills. The data show voids of similar depth and shape, hinting that the visible complex might only be a fraction of something larger. Yet without excavation, their form remains speculative. For now, the known caves stand as the visible portion of an unseen design, the threshold of an architecture that refuses to reveal itself. The villagers who first drained the pond recall the first glimpse of stairs descending into the dark. What they found that day continues to unsettle archaeologists and engineers alike. If human hands carved those walls, they worked with a precision that should not have existed. If they did not, the question becomes far greater. What force, guided or forgotten, left behind such perfect silence beneath the earth? The light still falls on the carved walls exactly as it did when the pond was full, flickering, then gone. The London crystal lens, the Eye of Assyria. In the heat and dust of 1850s Mesopotamia, a quiet discovery went unnoticed among the ruins of an empire. Excavations at Nimrud, the ancient city once called Kalhu, revealed palaces carved with winged deities, lions and kings who ruled by divine right. Among the relics that surfaced from the buried halls was a small, clear object, unremarkable beside the grandeur of carved alabaster and gold. It was shaped like a flattened oval, smooth at its edges, its surface bearing the faint shimmer of something carefully made. For years it remained overlooked, its significance hidden beneath layers of more visible history. Among fragments of carved ivory and shattered tablets lay a piece of crystal so precise it seemed out of place. Those who first catalogued it thought it might be an ornament or fragment of jewellery, but the lens, as it came to be known, did not fit the patterns of adornment found in Assyrian art. Its curvature was deliberate, its polish exact, as if meant not for beauty but for function. When light passed through it, it bent and focused, revealing in a moment that the ancient craftsman who shaped it understood more than ornamentation. When examined under modern light, the quartz revealed surfaces no accident of nature could have formed. Microscopic study showed an even curvature across both faces, each ground to a precision that required methodical shaping. The quartz itself, harder than steel, would have resisted all but the most determined effort. No signs of chipping or abrasion remain visible, suggesting that fine powders or abrasives were used to polish it to optical quality. The artifact, now known as the Nimrud lens, has been dated to the 7th century BCE, placing it within the reign of Ashurnasirpal II or his successors, a time of vast imperial wealth and innovation. Historical accounts mention that the Assyrians experimented with lenses of rock crystal and obsidian, materials prized for their clarity and resilience, suggesting that the Nimrud piece may have been part of a broader, now lost tradition of optical craftsmanship. Optical specialists who studied its curvature found that it could magnify, focus, and even distort light with remarkable accuracy. When used over small carvings, the lens enlarged details invisible to the naked eye, suggesting that it might have aided artisans in fine engraving or jewel work. Others tested its focal length, discovering that it could concentrate sunlight into a narrow beam strong enough to ignite surfaces, a primitive burning glass. The possibility that the Assyrians 3,000 years ago had mastered such control of light unsettled the linear narrative of technological progress. It raised questions not only about craftsmanship, but about what purpose vision itself once served in that world. What purpose such a device served in Assyria remains an open question. Some have speculated that it formed part of a telescope, an idea dismissed by most historians, since no corresponding lens or tube has ever been found. Others suggest it was used in ritual, amplifying the power of fire or symbolizing divine sight. The Assyrians worshipped Shamash, the god of the sun and justice, whose all-seeing eye was said to pierce truth from shadow. In that context, a lens capable of concentrating sunlight into brilliance would not have been a mere tool, but an embodiment of celestial authority. Perhaps it was not meant to extend human vision, but to capture the gaze of the gods. Across history, lenses have often marked the threshold between seeing and understanding. To the Assyrians, who mapped the stars and recorded eclipses with mathematical precision, sight was never passive. It was power. The discovery of a crystal lens among their remains suggests that the study of optics may have been older, quieter, and more sacred than later histories admit. When light passed through that clear stone, it would have transformed not only what was seen, but how it was interpreted. The act of focusing light in that distant empire may have been an act of revelation. In the British Museum, where the lens rests today, it draws little attention from passing visitors. Its label names it plainly, stripped of speculation: rock crystal, possibly used as a magnifying glass. Yet those who linger notice something elusive in its simplicity. It catches light in ways that seem alive, shifting subtly as the viewer moves, as though it still remembers the hands that shaped it. The surrounding artifacts, tablets, seals, fragments of relief, remain fixed in their silence, but the crystal reflects and returns the gaze. Modern imaging of the Nimrud lens has revealed faint traces of polishing spirals, suggesting a deliberate rotational method long before the known invention of lathes. Recent microscopic residue analysis revealed traces of an unknown organic compound on its edge, possibly adhesive, hinting that the lens may once have been mounted within a larger instrument or ceremonial frame. That insight has reignited debate about how such precision could have been achieved with Bronze Age tools. Some propose the use of fine sand and rotating cords. Others insist that experimentation guided by intuition could yield the same perfection given enough patience. Whatever the means, the outcome exceeds expectation. a bridge between art and engineering that stands quietly at the edge of comprehension. The more closely it is studied, the more it defies closure. If it was crafted to magnify, then it implies study. If it was meant for ritual, then it implies symbolism. And if it were merely ornamental, then its perfection seems excessive for its purpose. Each explanation satisfies only part of what it reveals. Perhaps that tension is the true legacy of the object, a reminder that some technologies do not vanish, but become sacred, their function transformed into mystery. In the stillness of its display, the crystal holds its gaze, waiting, perhaps, for someone to see what it once revealed. The Cochno Stone, a forgotten map of the stars. Under a thin veil of Scottish mist, a vast pattern of circles emerged from the soil as if the land itself had begun to remember. In the quiet outskirts of Clydebank, just west of Glasgow, the earth revealed something ancient, etched not by nature but by a mind that seemed to understand both stone and sky. The discovery came as a shock to those who uncovered it, for the design that spread across the field was neither random nor decorative. It pulsed with an underlying order, like a message written in geometry, and whispered of a knowledge that had survived long after its makers had vanished. The slab, known today as the Cochno Stone, stretches more than 12 metres across, its surface carved with spirals, rings and hollows that twist like frozen constellations. The sheer scale of the stone is overwhelming, its smooth surface rising gently from the ground as though meant to be seen from above. Lines and grooves link one shape to another, forming pathways that seem deliberate yet refuse any simple interpretation. For those who stood before it when it was first uncovered, the carvings evoked something at once deeply human and alien, an attempt to make sense of the unseen. When cleaned and mapped, its carvings revealed over 90 distinct cup and ring symbols, each connected by grooves that seem less random the longer one studies them. The arrangement suggests precision. Some spirals radiate outward in perfect symmetry, while others cluster toward one edge, as if marking a point of orientation. Measurements taken in the early surveys showed that many of the rings were evenly spaced, carved with an accuracy difficult to explain without advanced tools. To those who examined it closely, the design appeared not like art but like information. To some, the markings resemble the heavens themselves, an intricate reflection of celestial order traced in stone thousands of years ago. The theory of an ancient star map has persisted for decades, supported by researchers who noted how certain symbols align with prominent constellations. Patterns corresponding to Ursa Major and Orion have been proposed, suggesting that the carvings may once have mirrored the sky as it appeared over Scotland in the late Neolithic. If true, the Cochno Stone would stand among humanity's earliest attempts to record the movements of the cosmos on solid ground. Others argue that the stone's surface records not the heavens but rituals, rites of fertility, death, and renewal that once pulsed through Neolithic Britain. The cut marks, they suggest, might have held offerings, their circular grooves filled with water or oil to reflect sunlight during ceremonies. In that interpretation, the spirals and rings become symbols of life cycles rather than star positions, and the grooves that link them act as pathways between worlds, the mortal and the divine. Yet even this theory leaves unanswered why the same designs appear at hundreds of other sites across the British Isles, each carved with uncanny consistency. The challenge lies in the repetition of symbols. Identical spirals appear miles away at other prehistoric sites, suggesting a shared code whose syntax is now lost. Across Scotland, Ireland and northern England, stones bear the same marks, each slightly altered but recognisably part of the same visual language. Some seem arranged with regional variations, as if local craftsmen interpreted a common source. The persistence of these patterns over vast distances implies a level of communication, or shared cosmology, that archaeology still struggles to define. When the stone was first exposed in the 1880s, crowds gathered to see it, trampling its carvings in curiosity until authorities chose to rebury it. The excitement of discovery quickly turned to concern as damage began to appear. Boots wore down the grooves, and visitors carved their names beside the ancient spirals. Local officials, recognizing the fragility of the site, covered it again beneath layers of soil and grass. For decades it lay hidden, preserved by the same earth that had protected it for millennia, forgotten except in local legend and archival notes. Revealed again through modern scans, its long-lost patterns emerged in extraordinary detail. though the mystery remained unchanged. High-resolution imaging traced every curve and groove, allowing researchers to recreate the surface digitally without disturbing it. The precision of the carvings became undeniable, some rings measured to within millimeters of perfection. Yet even as technology unveiled its form, its meaning grew only more elusive, as though the stone itself resisted interpretation. If the grooves were meant to mirror the night sky, then time itself has shifted the heavens beyond recognition, leaving only the pattern without the key. The constellations have moved, stars have drifted. The sky no longer matches what the carver once saw. The Cochno stone has thus become a monument to dislocation, a record of alignment that no longer aligns. Its grooves, carved for the eye of another age, now describe a sky that exists only in memory. Now the stone endures as an echo of intent, matter holding memory, silent but watchful. Grass grows again over its edges, and the air above it hums with the quiet of unbroken time. Visitors who stand near its buried form sense only the faintest trace of the design beneath their feet, a pattern lying dormant yet unforgotten. What survives is not its message, but its persistence, the will of an ancient hand to preserve meaning in a medium that outlasts understanding. And when darkness settles over its spirals, one might wonder if it still traces constellations that no longer exist. The Shigir idol, the wooden guardian of the Ice Age. In the chill silence of the Ural Mountains, where the land exhales mist through its frozen soil, something ancient was waiting. The peat bogs of Siberia have long preserved what should have been lost to time: trees, animal bones, and in rare moments traces of human expression. Among these layers, the Shigir idol lay hidden for thousands of years, its tall form shielded from decay by the acidic, oxygen-poor mud. The environment itself seemed complicit in its survival, a slow and careful guardian keeping the wooden figure from the ravages that claimed all else. When peat diggers struck wood instead of stone, they found not a tree but a figure, tall, human, and impossibly old. The workmen initially thought it a mundane remnant of fallen timber, but the form quickly betrayed its purpose. Carvings stretched across its surface, intricate and deliberate, unlike anything they had encountered before. For a moment, the ordinary labour of extraction paused, overtaken by the uncanny presence of a creation that predated even the earliest known civilizations of the region. The form that emerged stood over 5 meters high, carved with a patience that seemed to echo another kind of time. Each segment of the idol bore geometric designs, carefully arranged into vertical columns that ran from base to top. The wood was darkened by millennia beneath peat, yet the reliefs remained strikingly sharp, suggesting a craft far more meticulous than most Stone Age artifacts. The figure's sheer height and commanding presence made it impossible to dismiss as a mere ritual object. It demanded attention, as if it had been meant to watch and endure. Across its surface, zigzags, chevrons, and diamond shapes wove around 7 human-like faces, each expression caught between calm and warning. The faces are rendered abstractly, but their eyes and mouths convey an uncanny awareness, as though they were witnesses to events no longer remembered. The patterns connecting them suggest a deliberate narrative, one that may have recorded cosmology, social hierarchy, or even mythic history. Every groove seems purposeful, every angle considered, yet the meaning is lost in the erosion of time. Microscopic analysis shows that some of the carvings were made with tools sharpened to extraordinary precision, leaving marks that hint at advanced woodworking skills long before metallurgy. Initially, scholars placed the idol in the late Stone Age, convinced that its craftsmanship could not predate known civilizations. Its scale and complexity seemed impossible for people assumed to be hunter-gatherers, and the lack of comparable artifacts reinforced the belief. Many dismissed it as a later insertion or a regional anomaly, an exception to the expected progression of human art. Even the most experienced researchers struggled to reconcile the idol's sophistication with what was known about the Ice Age communities of Eurasia. Only when radiocarbon tests were performed did the truth disrupt every assumption. The Shigir idol was revealed to be roughly 11,500 years old, predating agriculture in the region and surpassing the oldest wooden artifacts previously discovered by millennia. Its creation coincided with the final retreat of the glaciers, a time when humans were adapting to changing climates and landscapes. the revelation forced a reconsideration not only of the idol itself, but also of the intellectual and artistic capacities of early post-glacial societies. Dated to roughly 11,500 years ago, the Shigir idol is twice as old as the pyramids, older even than agriculture itself. Its wooden surface has absorbed the memory of ice and river, forest and bog, each layer of sediment a witness to its endurance. The scale of its preservation is staggering. Where most wooden artifacts rot within decades, the idol survived, a silent testament to both environmental luck and human intention. Its age transforms it from a regional curiosity into one of the earliest known monumental sculptures in the world. Some believe its carvings are a map of the spirit world. Others see warnings carved after a great flood, memory transcribed into wood. The zigzag lines may mimic lightning, serpents, or rivers. The repeated faces could be ancestors, spirits, or guardian deities. Interpretations abound, yet none can be confirmed. Recent studies of the wood's growth rings suggest the tree may have been centuries old when felled, implying the creators carefully selected their material for both spiritual and structural significance. What is certain is that the idol was meaningful to its creators in ways that remain incomprehensible, designed to communicate across millennia, whether to human descendants or to the spirits they revered. Its survival defies reason. For wood to endure this long, sealed beneath layers of wet peat, it required a perfect accident of nature. Without the chemical makeup of the bog and the absence of oxygen, the idol would have long since returned to soil. Yet here it stands, or rather, once stood, its surface carved in deliberate lines that hint at lost knowledge. Each groove, each face, each pattern resonates with a history that cannot be fully recovered, preserved against all odds, and in defiance of time. Today the idol rests behind glass in Yekaterinburg, its hollow eyes reflecting not light, but the memory of a vanished world. Scholars and visitors alike can only imagine the ritual, belief, or purpose that guided its creation. Its presence evokes the fragility of human culture and the power of endurance. A wooden figure from the Ice Age holding onto memory when civilizations rise and fall around it. Even separated from the peat that once shielded it, the idol commands attention, a silent guardian of a world now irretrievable. Silent and immovable, it guards secrets older than memory, waiting for a world that will never return. The Nazca line's messages drawn for the sky. Armed with nothing more than wooden stakes and cords, the Nazca people walked the desert, plotting lines that would span hundreds of meters. The sun blazed overhead, and the sand shifted underfoot, yet each step was deliberate, measured, precise. No aerial vantage was available, no map to guide them from above, only intuition, repetition, and an understanding of proportion that defies simple explanation. The creation of these lines required not just physical endurance, but a collective vision, a shared purpose that transcended individual effort. Each line required careful measurement, repetition, and coordination, demanding time and precision unimaginable in a pre-mechanical society. Straight paths extended for kilometers, curving only when intention dictated, and geometric patterns emerged where none had existed. The labor was grueling, yet the results suggest a meticulous obsession with symmetry, scale, and visual impact. Such accuracy in a society without written records or complex instruments continues to baffle archaeologists and engineers alike. Figures emerge from the earth, a condor with a broad wingspan, a whale frozen mid-swim, a spider poised as if ready to leap. Each was proportioned with uncanny symmetry, its forms recognizable only from above. The animal images coexist with triangles, trapezoids, and spirals, as if the artists wove together the natural and the abstract into a single, coherent composition. Even after centuries, the precision of the designs commands attention, their intention unmistakable. The shallow trenches revealed no tool marks of metal. Their creators relied on ropes, wooden stakes, and acute observation of angles and distance. The lines are shallow, only a few centimeters deep, yet their clarity endures against wind and occasional rain. Archaeological experiments suggest that simple tools, combined with careful planning and repeated correction, could produce remarkably straight and accurate lines. The methods remain primitive by modern standards, yet the results rival geometric knowledge that would not appear elsewhere for millennia. Careful study of certain lines reveals subtle variations in soil and stone that may have been intentional. In some areas, the surface was cleared more deeply, or the pebbles arranged to create a sharper contrast, making figures visible from a distance or under specific sunlight angles. These variations suggest the Nazca were not only carving shapes, but manipulating the desert itself as a canvas, treating sand and stone as tools to enhance durability and visibility. Such attention to detail implies a level of planning and environmental understanding that rivals many later civilizations. Even today, these subtle techniques remain difficult to detect without aerial or technological assistance, hinting at knowledge carefully encoded into the landscape. Such work suggests a society capable of planning, collaboration, and perhaps devotion, raising questions about their priorities and beliefs. Why dedicate so much effort to markings visible only from above? Perhaps the lines were offerings, pathways, or celestial maps meant to communicate with the gods, or with forces humans could sense but not fully understand. Whatever the purpose, the labour required cooperation on an extraordinary scale, reflecting social organisation, shared values, and a collective imagination. From the desert floor, the lines appear as scratches. From the hills or sky, they transform into deliberate, interconnected compositions. The perspective of a single observer cannot convey their full impact. Only distance, height, or imagination can reveal the pattern's scope. Long, sweeping lines intersect at precise angles. Geometric forms nest within animal figures, and repetition hints at a language of symbols whose syntax has been lost. To stand upon the earth is to see fragments. To rise above is to glimpse intention. Some scholars argue they mark solstices or align with star paths, while others see ceremonial pathways or offerings to deities. Certain trapezoids correspond to water sources, suggesting a practical element in addition to spiritual purpose. Yet despite decades of study, no consensus has emerged. The line's meaning may combine function, ritual, and observation, or it may elude categorization altogether, an enigma carved into the desert by hands long gone. Today, drones and satellite imagery allow researchers to trace every curve and angle, yet each scan uncovers as many questions as answers. Three-dimensional models reveal subtle variations in depth and width, and computer analysis attempts to reconstruct sightlines and alignments. Even with these tools, the lines resist interpretation. The precision, the scale, and the endurance of the designs continue to suggest knowledge or insight that we cannot fully comprehend. Centuries of wind, rain, and human activity have altered the desert, yet the lines endure, a testament to both intention and environment. Where once they may have been sacred, now they are scientific, aesthetic, and mysterious all at once. Their survival is precarious, dependent on the desert air, yet it also underscores the deliberate care of their creators. Each line, figure, and geometric shape has been preserved by both human respect and natural fortune, a silent dialogue between culture and land. No one knows who first looked skyward and realized these marks could speak, nor the full message intended for unseen eyes. Whether meant for deities, spirits, or the cosmos itself, the lines evoke both awe and uncertainty. They're evidence of labor, artistry, and ambition, yet their purpose remains just beyond human grasp. For those who study them, they are both artifact and riddle, a testament to what humans can achieve and what they still cannot decode. The lines stretch endlessly across sand and time, whispering secrets meant only for eyes that may never see them. The Hypogeum of Hal Safleeni, the temple that speaks. Below the parched plains of Paula, Malta, a hidden labyrinth endures, its stones carrying the faint, persistent echoes of history. The Hypogeum of Hal Safleeni, carved deep into the island's limestone more than 5,000 years ago, stretches across 3 levels of chambers, corridors, and niches, forming a vast necropolis that defies conventional understanding. Its discovery in 1902 revealed a site meticulously planned and constructed, yet its purpose remains shrouded in mystery. Archaeologists have long marvelled at the precision of its carved walls, the symmetry of its halls, and the deliberate placement of its chambers, suggesting a knowledge of architecture and acoustics far beyond what one might expect from the Neolithic people of Malta. From the entrance, the Hypogeum unfolds like a carefully orchestrated maze, its low ceilings and narrow passageways demanding both physical and psychological adaptation from those who enter. The walls, worn smooth by millennia of human touch, echo the faintest sounds, carrying them across chambers in ways that modern scientists still struggle to quantify. One particular chamber, the Oracle Room, amplifies even the softest human voice, creating a resonance that fills the space with a spectral vibration. Researchers conducting experiments with tonal frequencies have found that a single spoken note can reverberate through the chamber for several seconds, enveloping the listener in a soundscape that seems alive. This acoustic phenomenon has led some scholars to speculate that the Hypogeum was designed not merely as a burial site, but as a ritualistic centre where sound played a central role in spiritual practice. The placement of the walls, ceilings and niches may have been intentionally calculated to create a sonic environment capable of inducing trance or altered states of consciousness. The term "temple that speaks" emerges not from legend alone, but from the unmistakable effect of the architecture itself, where stone and air combine to produce a resonance that resonates in both body and mind. The Hypogeum's construction challenges assumptions about prehistoric engineering. Carved entirely by hand, with rudimentary tools, the site features curved walls, rounded pillars, and delicate reliefs that suggest an advanced understanding of both form and function. The alignment of its chambers with natural strata of limestone and the careful consideration of weight distribution demonstrate an architectural sophistication rarely associated with a culture traditionally thought to be in the early stages of settlement. Even the smallest details, such as the niches carved into walls and the hollows in the ceilings, may have served specific acoustic or ceremonial purposes. Human remains found within the Hypogeum provide further insight into its enigmatic nature. The bones of adults and children, often placed in seated positions, indicate a complex funerary ritual. Analysis of the skeletal remains shows signs of meticulous care, suggesting that those interred were treated with reverence, their placement within the chambers deliberately chosen to maximize some unknown spiritual or ceremonial effect. Recent studies using 3D imaging have revealed subtle indentations on some skulls that may indicate the use of vocal modulation techniques, suggesting that sound rituals were not merely ambient but intentionally interactive. The presence of red ochre on several skeletons points to symbolic or ritualistic use, echoing practices seen in other ancient burial sites across Europe. Yet here the context is intensified by the site's acoustic properties. The walls themselves hold secrets that have yet to be fully decoded. Incised motifs and abstract symbols appear throughout the chambers, some of them faint traces barely visible to the naked eye. Microscopic analysis of the limestone surface shows traces of mineral deposits consistent with repeated exposure to smoke or incense, hinting that the acoustic effects were enhanced by ritual substances in addition to architectural design. While some researchers categorize these marks as decorative or symbolic, others theorize that they could have been part of a complex system for manipulating sound or guiding ritual movements. Experiments with audio mapping and modern acoustic technology have revealed that certain carvings appear to interact with resonance patterns, amplifying or dampening specific frequencies. This suggests that sound may have been an active component of the site's design, integrated in ways that remain difficult to reconstruct. Despite extensive study, many questions about the Hypogeum endure. How did a Neolithic society without written records conceive of such a space? What purpose did the enhanced acoustic chambers serve beyond the ceremonial? Why was such extraordinary effort invested in an underground structure that seems entirely divorced from daily life above ground? Even with the advanced techniques of 21st century science, the interplay of architecture, material and sound within Hal Safleeni resists complete explanation. Visitors today experience a profound sense of connection and disquiet as they move through the chambers. Footsteps echo unnaturally long, whispers are amplified as if the stones themselves were listening, and the faint scent of earth and age permeates every corner. The Hypogeum remains one of the few prehistoric sites where the human presence is not only witnessed, but seemingly acknowledged by the structure itself. Researchers continue to probe its dimensions, conduct acoustic analyses, and search for patterns in the carvings, yet each revelation seems to deepen the enigma rather than resolve it. It is a place where the ancient and modern meet in uneasy harmony, where stone communicates in ways that science can measure but not fully understand. Every experiment, every hypothesis only reinforces the sense that Hal Safleeni was designed with an intelligence attuned to forces both physical and ethereal. The deeper one delves into its chambers, the more the Hypogeum insists that it is not merely a tomb, but a living repository of sound, memory, and intent from a time long before written history. The Hypogeum of Hal Safleeni holds its secrets in resonance, and the echoes of voices long silent still wander its corridors. The Yonaguni Monument, the sunken steps of time. Shifting layers of sediment and ocean currents have concealed much of the seafloor around Yonaguni, yet beneath these restless waters lies a formation that immediately challenges perception. Submerged terraces, massive platforms, and sharply angular steps rise from depths approaching 25 meters, hinting at an intentional design hidden for millennia. Geological studies confirm that the region has experienced significant tectonic activity, including earthquakes and gradual subsidence, yet the symmetry and scale of these underwater structures resist purely natural explanation. Some researchers suggest that sea levels during the late Pleistocene would have exposed these formations as coastal plains, potentially allowing human interaction before the waters rose. The intersection of time, geology, and water has both preserved and obscured these structures, leaving an enigma that spans tens of thousands of years. When explorers first descended in 1986, the ocean revealed a landscape that seemed alien and unnervingly deliberate. Diver Masaki Kimura and his team documented terraces stretching hundreds of meters, each with remarkably straight edges and uniform angles. Their astonishment arose from the apparent precision of the formations, which resembled staircases, roads, and platforms, rather than random rock outcrops. Sketches and photographs captured a scene that challenged conventional archaeological timelines, as these structures appeared far more sophisticated than what was thought achievable by the region's known prehistoric inhabitants. Subsequent dives revealed additional features, including large monolithic blocks seemingly placed or carved with care, suggesting a level of planning that confounded initial assessments. Massive terraces dominate the site, rising in layered steps that could accommodate hundreds of people standing side by side. Certain platforms measure over 20 meters across, while some blocks weigh tens of tons, positioned in ways that seem intentional. Angular depressions and straight-edge pathways appear to intersect at precise intervals, forming an interconnected grid. Researchers have noted features resembling enclosures or ceremonial areas, their dimensions too regular to arise solely from natural fracturing. These formations maintain straight lines over distances exceeding 50 meters, while corners meet at right angles which rarely occur in natural rock erosion. The careful alignment of terraces with underlying bedrock raises questions about the ancient knowledge of surveying, leveling, and construction required to achieve such precision. Scientific teams have since mapped the site with sonar, submersible cameras, and 3D modeling, revealing a complexity previously unimaginable. Carbon dating of sediments adjacent to the formations suggests an age of 10 to 12,000 years, placing the monument in a period when human societies were largely coastal foragers. Structural analysis identifies fractures consistent with both seismic activity and deliberate shaping. Sonar scans highlight potential channels or connecting pathways, reinforcing the impression of intentional architecture. Even with these technological advances, debate continues. Some geologists assert the formations are naturally fractured bedrock, while others argue for human modification based on the unusual angles, flat surfaces, and repetitive terraces. Every measurement produces a new puzzle, blurring the line between natural forces and prehistoric ingenuity. Intriguingly, recent surveys have uncovered faint carvings and grooves on several of the larger blocks, resembling patterns that could indicate measurement marks or primitive tools. While erosion complicates interpretation, the presence of these subtle markings suggests that ancient hands may have actively shaped portions of the monument, rather than relying solely on natural fractures. These traces, visible only under close inspection with underwater lighting and high-resolution imaging, offer a tantalizing clue that human intention might have left its imprint beneath the waves, deepening the mystery of who could have created such an extraordinary sight. Legends of lost lands and submerged civilizations have long surrounded the islands of southern Japan, offering tantalizing context for Yonaguni. Some researchers reference the myth of Muhu or lost continental fragments, while others speculate on Jomon-era cultural activity. No definitive evidence ties the formations to a known society, yet their scale and precision suggest a knowledge of stone manipulation and planning far beyond conventional timelines. If constructed by humans, the monument predates any recorded architectural achievement in the region by millennia, implying the presence of a sophisticated culture now erased from history. The possibility that an entire settlement once thrived here, now claimed by the sea, adds a haunting dimension to the mystery. Underwater, the site exerts a strange and unsettling presence. Currents sweep through terraces and channels, moving sediments in patterns that alter light and shadow across the stone surfaces. Divers describe an almost tactile sense of scale, as though the formations extend beyond visual perception. Bubbles rising from the breathing apparatus echo along the steps and depressions, producing sounds that suggest cavernous depth. Optical distortions caused by water refraction make flat surfaces appear to float or shift as divers change angles, amplifying the impression that the site is alive in some imperceptible way. Even subtle interactions, like a hand brushing a submerged block, seem to trigger a heightened awareness of the environment, as if the monument responds to human presence. Unyielding to decades of scrutiny, the Yonaguni monument refuses to fit any known category. Questions of origin, purpose, and construction methods remain unresolved. Scholars debate how such structures could have been built underwater or exposed during periods of lower sea levels. The potential use of simple tools to shape massive blocks, align terraces, and create precise angles seems improbable for societies without known advanced technology. Further mysteries emerge in the possible astronomical alignment of the terraces and channels, which may hint at knowledge of celestial patterns. The deeper researchers delve, the more the monument resists comprehension, leaving a puzzle that spans both the natural and human realms. Preserving secrets older than memory, the stone steps of Yonaguni lie quietly beneath the waves. The Tartaria tablets, the first written words. From the earliest markings left by humans, symbols have served as vessels of thought, communication, and ritual, carrying meaning beyond the limitations of spoken language. Across the landscapes of prehistoric Europe, simple carvings and incisions in stone or clay hint at the emergence of a collective consciousness reaching to record, to preserve, and perhaps to command the world around them. Among these incipient expressions of human cognition, the Tartaria tablets, discovered in southern Romania in 1961, stand apart. Unlike fleeting scratches or utilitarian tally marks, they convey an organised system of symbols, each etched with intention and precision, suggesting that the need to communicate transcended mere survival. These small clay plaques are more than artefacts, they are glimpses into the mind of a culture experimenting with the very idea of writing. Inscribed on each tablet are delicate symbols, their arrangement neither random nor repetitive in a simple pattern. The tablets themselves are modest in size, measuring only a few inches across, yet they bear markings whose implications are immense. Triangles, circles, and lines intersect in sequences that hint at a proto-writing system, one that precedes or parallels the earliest known cuneiform from Sumer. The clay, carefully fired and preserved, retains the impressions of the tool or stylus that created them. Tiny ridges, the faintest depressions, and the orientation of each mark suggest deliberation, an awareness of the effect each stroke would have on the tablet as a whole. For an artifact this small, the level of sophistication is astonishing, revealing a culture capable of abstract thought, symbolic reasoning, and meticulous craftsmanship. Repeating patterns emerge across the tablets, yet they resist immediate interpretation. Some symbols appear in clusters, perhaps indicating names, quantities, or ritual significance. Others recur in isolation, hinting at concepts that are lost to time. Scholars have debated whether these markings represent an early numeric system, a set of spiritual symbols, or an embryonic written language. The organisation of lines and shapes suggests an underlying grammar or logic, one that modern researchers are only beginning to glimpse. The tablets challenge the assumption that writing was first invented in Mesopotamia, proposing instead that complex symbolic communication may have arisen independently in multiple regions, long before conventional histories would suggest. Further examination using microscopic imaging has revealed faint traces of pigments on some of the tablets, suggesting that the symbols may once have been coloured or highlighted to enhance their visibility or significance. These remnants of ochre or other natural pigments imply an additional layer of intentionality, transforming the inscriptions from mere markings into objects designed to convey meaning vividly. Such evidence points to a sophisticated awareness of both material and perception, indicating that the creators not only shaped the symbols, but also manipulated how they would be seen, perhaps for ritual, educational, or ceremonial purposes. Among Neolithic communities of the Vinca culture, to which these tablets are attributed, symbolism was woven into daily life and ritual. Pottery, figurines, and ornaments display motifs that echo the forms seen on the tablets, suggesting a cultural system where communication, religion, and art were inseparable. The Tartaria tablets may have been used in ceremonies, as offerings, or as a record of events too significant to be left to memory alone. The careful crafting and preservation of each tablet imply reverence, an acknowledgement of their importance beyond the practical. They hint at a society attempting to shape understanding through symbols, a people for whom the act of writing may have been as sacred as any spoken invocation. With fervour unbroken, scholars argue over the tablets, disputing their meaning, age, and authenticity. Carbon dating of surrounding strata suggests an origin around 5,500 BCE, a period that predates most known writing systems. Critics caution that without definitive context, the markings cannot be conclusively called writing. Others insist that the symbolic complexity and repetition indicate deliberate communication, not mere decoration. Archaeologists continue to debate whether the tablets represent an isolated experiment in proto-writing or evidence of a broader, lost literate culture. Every excavation, analysis, and reinterpretation only deepens the mystery, leaving the tablets suspended between confirmed artifact and enigmatic relic. The implications of the Tartaria tablets extend beyond a single village or society. If they indeed represent the earliest form of writing in human history, they compel a re-evaluation of how and where literacy emerged. They suggest that the capacity for abstract symbolic thought, long assumed to have developed gradually, was present in Europe independently of Mesopotamian influence. These small clay surfaces become bridges across millennia, connecting modern observers with a people whose intellectual ambitions were profound, yet nearly invisible to the historical record. The tablets hint at a culture grappling with the need to record and transmit knowledge, to create permanence from impermanence, in an age before written history had a recognized beginning. Yet the meaning of these etched symbols remains elusive. Despite decades of study, the purpose of the Tartaria tablets cannot be definitively determined. Are they early accounting tools, ceremonial objects, or a genuine written language? The absence of contemporary documentation, the sparseness of comparable artifacts, and the ambiguity of their symbols ensure that each new theory generates further questions. The tablets stand as both evidence and enigma, whispering of human ingenuity and leaving scholars suspended in the tension between discovery and understanding. Time has preserved these tiny tablets against decay, but it has not revealed the intentions of those who first pressed symbols into clay. The stone of the pregnant woman, the monolith that waits. Rising from the foundations of Baalbek in Lebanon, the stone of the pregnant woman dominates the surrounding landscape with a presence that is impossible to ignore. Its colossal mass, estimated at over 1,000 tons, dwarfs any human construction known from the same era. Even in photographs, the scale is deceptive, requiring comparison with the nearby ruins to grasp its immensity. The monolith sits in silence, weathered by millennia, yet its sheer size hints at a monumental ambition. For those who gaze upon it today, the first reaction is not to wonder how it fits within the temple complex, but to question how such a block could have been moved at all by a society without the wheel or mechanized tools. Composed of dense limestone quarried from a site over a kilometre away, the monolith presents logistical puzzles that continue to baffle engineers and archaeologists alike. The surface bears marks suggesting it was shaped or dressed before transportation, though the methods remain unclear. Modern calculations of its weight and volume underscore the difficulty of moving a single stone of this magnitude without modern machinery. Attempts to replicate ancient techniques using ropes, rollers, and inclined planes provide tantalizing insights, but fail to produce definitive answers. The limestone's durability, combined with the terrain of the quarry, amplifies the mystery. Moving and positioning a block of such size would have required extraordinary coordination, labour, and knowledge of physics. Theories abound regarding how the stone of the pregnant woman was transported. Some suggest that teams of hundreds, or perhaps thousands, could have dragged it using wooden sledges lubricated with water or oil. Others propose that the block may have been floated along rivers during periods of high water, then manoeuvred into position with earthen ramps and levers. Alternative hypotheses speculate on the use of lost or unrecorded technologies, including mechanical aids or ingenious pulley systems now forgotten to history. Despite decades of experimentation, no modern attempt has reproduced the feat on the scale and precision evident in the monolith's final placement, reinforcing the notion that something extraordinary lies behind its construction. Faint traces of abrasion patterns have emerged under microscopic analysis of the stone surface, possibly indicating contact with wooden sledges or ropes, suggesting that prehistoric builders experimented with multiple techniques to move it. Tiny striations, aligned in parallel along specific faces, hint at repetitive motion consistent with dragging or sliding, offering rare physical evidence of the methods employed. While these traces do not solve the mystery entirely, they provide a tangible link between human ingenuity and the colossal ambition required to manipulate such an immense monolith, bridging the gap between speculation and material proof. Situated within the greater context of the Baalbek temple complex, the monolith seems to serve more than a functional role. Its placement may carry symbolic or ritual significance. Scholars note that it aligns with other massive stones in the complex, suggesting careful planning to integrate religious, astronomical, or ceremonial considerations. The temple, devoted to gods of fertility, strength, and the heavens, would have demanded structures capable of impressing, inspiring, and asserting authority. The monolith's imposing size alone would have communicated power, whether spiritual, political, or both. Its name, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, hints at associations with fertility and creation, though the origin of this title remains uncertain, reflecting layers of myth, interpretation, and local tradition. Measurements reveal astonishing precision in the positioning of the monolith relative to the surrounding stones. The levelling of its base, the alignment with adjacent blocks, and the apparent calculation of load distribution all indicate careful engineering. Even small gaps between this stone and neighbouring blocks appear deliberate, perhaps intended to accommodate settling or seismic activity over centuries. Modern structural analysis suggests that its placement would have required a sophisticated understanding of weight distribution, friction, and balance, implying that the builders possessed practical knowledge that surpasses what is commonly attributed to ancient societies. Every detail measured by contemporary engineers adds to the sense of deliberate mastery, raising questions about the limits of prehistoric capability. Legends speak of the monolith as a testament to human ambition and the extraordinary. Local lore frames it as a stone too heavy for ordinary men, imbued with mystical significance, perhaps even moved with divine assistance. Some speculate that it was intended as a foundation for a structure never completed, or as a monument commemorating a lost culture of builders whose methods were never recorded. Ancient texts and later travellers' accounts mention stones of impossible weight at Baalbek, reinforcing the notion that human imagination has long been drawn to the sheer scale of these megaliths. In a region steeped in myth and history, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman exists at the intersection of reality and legend, challenging the imagination while silently demanding explanation. Unresolved and enigmatic, the purpose, method, and meaning of the Stone of the Pregnant Woman continue to elude understanding. Archaeologists, engineers, and historians continue to study it, debating whether its creation was a triumph of sheer human coordination or the product of knowledge now lost to time. Its weight, its alignment, and the precision with which it was placed suggest an extraordinary achievement, one that defies easy categorization. Each investigation, while illuminating aspects of its size and material, only deepens the mystery. The monolith stands as both evidence of human ingenuity and a challenge to our understanding of what was possible in an era long before modern technology. Holding secrets older than memory, the monolith waits silently, its 1,000 tons of stone unyielding. The Nebra sky disk, the bronze map of the cosmos. Above the horizon of Bronze Age Europe, the night sky unfolded in patterns both predictable and mysterious. Stars glimmered in constellations humans had yet to name, while the moon and sun traced arcs that governed the cycles of planting, harvest, and ritual. Observers of this vast celestial canvas relied solely on keen perception and memory, translating movement into meaning. It is within this framework of careful observation and innate curiosity that the Nebra sky disk finds its place, a remarkable testament to early humanity's desire to understand the heavens. The disk, small yet striking, serves as both map and message, hinting at a knowledge of the cosmos far beyond what was thought possible in 1600 BCE Europe. Unearthed in 1999 near the town of Nebra in modern Germany, the disk emerged from a context that was both tantalizing and mysterious. Treasure hunters initially discovered it, prompting immediate concern and scrutiny from archaeologists. The find consisted not only of the disk itself, a bronze circle inlaid with gold symbols, but also accompanying artifacts, swords, axes and bracelets, all of which suggested ritualistic significance. The discovery electrified the archaeological community, raising questions about the technological sophistication and astronomical understanding of the societies inhabiting Central Europe during the Late Bronze Age. Each artifact, and the disk in particular, implied that these communities were far more complex than previously assumed. Forged from bronze and decorated with gold leaf, the disk depicts celestial bodies with astonishing precision. A crescent moon, a golden sun, and a cluster of stars representing the Pleiades appear in meticulous arrangement, suggesting intentional representation rather than abstract decoration. Small arcs on the disk align with the solstices, providing a functional calendar to track the sun's seasonal movement. The craftsmanship of the disk, from the alloy composition to the placement of gold, indicates a deep understanding of both metallurgy and astronomy. Every symbol seems deliberate, every measurement intentional, hinting at a civilization capable of translating observation into physical form with remarkable clarity. Handled countless times in the past, the disk's gold inlays show faint signs of wear under microscopic scrutiny. Tiny scratches and polish marks suggest that it was not merely a ceremonial display, but an active instrument, passed from hand to hand as knowledge was consulted or conveyed. This evidence strengthens the idea that the Nebra sky disk was a functional object, bridging the divide between sacred artifact and practical astronomical tool. Precise alignments embedded in the disk reveal its potential as both a symbolic and practical instrument. Researchers have noted that certain features correspond to the horizon positions of sunrise and sunset during solstices, while others align with lunar cycles. The cluster of stars, long assumed to be decorative, may have served as a reference for timekeeping or seasonal planning. Such correlations suggest that the creators of the disk were not merely observers of the sky, but sophisticated interpreters of celestial mechanics. The artifact embodies an early marriage of ritual, science and artistry, capturing the movement of the cosmos in a form accessible to human hands. Scientific inquiry has sought to confirm the disk's age, composition and authenticity. Carbon dating of associated organic materials, analysis of the bronze's alloy composition, and metallurgical study of the gold inlays all support a date around 1600 BCE. Examination under microscopes reveals careful etching and polishing, evidence of skilled workmanship. Scholars debate whether the disk was a single creation or part of a broader tradition of astronomical artifacts. Some propose that it represents the earliest known portable representation of the sky in Europe, predating written records of astronomy elsewhere. Each test reinforces the sense that the disk is both extraordinary and enigmatic, bridging the gap between human observation and celestial phenomena. Within Bronze Age communities, the disk likely held multiple layers of meaning. It may have served as a ritual object, a calendar, or even a tool to consolidate authority through knowledge of the heavens. Its association with weapons and ceremonial items suggests that it was not everyday material but a sacred possession, guarded and revered. The precision of its symbols implies that knowledge of the sky was specialized, potentially restricted to a class of priest observers or leaders entrusted with interpreting time and season. Through this object, the intangible movements of celestial bodies became tangible, granting human society both practical guidance and spiritual insight. Connections emerge when the disk is considered alongside other Bronze Age artifacts across Europe, including astronomical motifs on pottery, megalithic alignments, and burial sites oriented towards solstices. These parallels suggest a shared understanding of celestial cycles and perhaps an early network of knowledge exchange between distant communities. The Nebra sky disk may represent not an isolated discovery, but a glimpse into a broader culture of observation, where the stars dictated ritual, agriculture, and social structure in ways only partially understood today. Millennia later, the Nebra sky disk continues to fascinate and perplex. Modern researchers attempt to reconstruct its purpose, comparing it to other prehistoric artifacts and celestial models, yet many questions remain unanswered. How did Bronze Age people acquire such precise knowledge of solstices and lunar cycles without telescopes? Was the disk part of a lost tradition of portable astronomical instruments? Did it guide ritual and agriculture simultaneously? Or was it primarily a sacred symbol whose meaning is now obscured? Each investigation illuminates some details while leaving others in shadow, preserving the disk's aura of mystery and its silent testimony to human curiosity. The Nebra sky disk hangs between history and imagination, a small bronze circle that charts a universe older than recorded time. The Anunnaki reliefs of Sumer, the gods with tools of power. In the heart of Sumer, where the Tigris and Euphrates converge, civilization first began to shape the contours of human society. Cities rose from the marshes, adorned with temples, ziggurats, and marketplaces, reflecting both the ingenuity and ambition of their inhabitants. Religion permeated every aspect of life, and the pantheon of gods guided rulers, farmers, and artisans alike. Among these deities, the Anunnaki held particular significance, depicted as powerful beings capable of influencing the fates of mortals. Within this fertile cradle of civilization, artisans carved images that recorded both myth and memory, leaving behind reliefs that continue to intrigue and perplex modern scholars. The interplay between the divine and the mundane in Sumerian art creates a visual record that is as enigmatic as it is elaborate. These reliefs have been revealed through excavations in temples, private shrines, and administrative buildings across Mesopotamia, frequently found with fragments of clay tablets and cuneiform inscriptions. Archaeologists first catalogued them in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, noting their exceptional detail and craftsmanship. Some reliefs were pristine, while others bore the scars of millennia, eroded edges, worn surfaces, and faint traces of pigment that hinted at original colour and vibrancy. The context of their discovery suggests that these carvings were not merely decorative but integral to the ritual and political life of the city-states. Each relief provides a window into a world where divine authority, human ingenuity, and symbolic representation intertwined in ways that remain only partially understood. Carved into stone, the reliefs depict figures of extraordinary proportions and presence. Some show deities holding rods, discs, or instruments whose precise function is unclear, yet whose design does not resemble any known tools of the era. Elaborate headdresses, patterned robes, and intricate jewellery emphasize their elevated status, while smaller human figures appear in positions of reverence or submission. Certain reliefs feature lines, wheels, and other geometric motifs that some observers interpret as mechanisms or devices. The artistry is meticulous, with deep grooves, fine textures, and intentional alignment of symbols that convey a sense of purpose and meaning beyond mere aesthetics. Each carving invites close study, as if the artisans intended to communicate a sophisticated understanding of both the earthly and celestial domains. Once hidden to the naked eye, faint pigments and mineral residues emerge under microscopic study, proving the reliefs were once vividly coloured. The reds, blues, and golds would have accentuated the figure's garments, instruments, and divine attributes, transforming the stone surfaces into striking visual narratives. These remnants suggest that Sumerian artisans intended the reliefs to convey not only form, but also symbolic meaning through colour, a dimension often lost to time. Understanding the original vibrancy of the reliefs provides a new perspective on how ancient observers would have interpreted these figures, emphasizing the gods' authority and the significance of the tools they held. Intriguing interpretations have emerged around the objects depicted in the hands of the Anunnaki. Some scholars suggest that these items are symbolic, representing divine authority, energy, or cosmic power rather than practical tools. Alternative perspectives propose that they may encode knowledge of advanced technologies, from precision instruments to energy harvesting devices, though such interpretations remain speculative. The consistency of certain motifs across different sites implies a shared symbolic language, hinting that the objects had recognized significance for contemporary observers. While mainstream archaeology emphasizes ritual and symbolic function, the relief's unusual forms continue to provoke debate, straddling the boundary between history and mystery. By comparing the reliefs from several Sumerian sites, recurring geometric shapes, rods, and wheel-like symbols come into view. The repetition of these motifs suggests a standardized symbolic language, or a shared understanding of ritual objects, possibly encoding complex knowledge about governance, cosmic order, or technology. Some archaeologists propose that these recurring forms indicate specialized workshops or guilds responsible for producing ritual carvings with consistent iconography. While the exact meaning of these patterns remains elusive, their uniformity across regions underscores a sophisticated cultural framework that guided the depiction of divine power. Embedded in their mythology, the reliefs reflect a culture deeply invested in the divine as mediator of knowledge and power. The Anunnaki were not merely deities to be worshipped, but figures whose actions and tools influenced agriculture, governance, and the measurement of time. Temples served as both spiritual centers and repositories of specialized knowledge, where priests interpreted celestial events, seasonal cycles, and divine will. In this context, the reliefs may have functioned as instructional aids, visual codices illustrating rituals, or symbolic maps of divine authority. They capture a civilization attempting to codify the unseen forces that govern life, blending artistry, theology, and practical knowledge into enduring stone. Because of their ambiguity, the carvings have fueled ongoing scholarly debate over meaning, the objects depicted, and the line between real technology and symbolic imagination. Some argue that the reliefs encode an advanced understanding of mechanics, energy, or astronomy, while others insist that their purpose was purely religious. Comparative studies across Mesopotamia reveal recurring motifs, wheels, rods, and geometric shapes, suggesting that these were not random artistic flourishes. Each new analysis adds layers of interpretation yet leaves fundamental questions unanswered. What did the Sumerians intend to convey, and how much of their knowledge has been lost to time? The carvings endure, etched into stone with precision and care, challenging assumptions about what ancient humans knew and could depict. They invite both awe and skepticism, a reminder that human imagination has long been capable of reaching beyond observable reality into realms that are still mysterious today. The tools may be divine, the knowledge may be lost, but the reliefs themselves remain, silently demanding understanding. The Olmec colossal heads, faces of forgotten kings, faces emerge from the dense forests of Veracruz, towering over the landscape with expressions frozen in stone. Each head, carved with meticulous care, presents features at once individualized and imposing, suggesting rulers whose memory demanded permanence. The sheer scale of these sculptures astonishes even modern observers, their broad jaws, thick lips, and intricate headdresses conveying authority that transcends time. They are not abstract monuments, but deliberate portraits, capturing human presence in a form meant to endure for centuries. The Olmecs, working in an era without metal tools capable of precision cutting, managed to imprint their vision of power onto basalt with extraordinary skill. Hidden beneath the soil for millennia, these colossal heads were discovered gradually, often by accident, their enormity only fully appreciated when revealed to the light. Archaeologists first encountered them in the 19th and 20th centuries, buried under centuries of jungle growth and sediment. Initial excavation revealed fragments of broken heads and accompanying artifacts, hinting at ritual significance and political importance. Each new find deepened both fascination and frustration, for while the heads provide glimpses into Olmec society, their origins, the identities of those portrayed, and the methods used to transport and carve them remain largely enigmatic. Carved from basalt transported from distant quarries, some heads weigh upwards of 20 tons, yet exhibit smooth surfaces and proportionally precise facial features. The artisans sculpted each face with attention to subtle detail, lines of the mouth, the curvature of the cheeks, the set of the eyes, all suggesting individualized likenesses. Headdresses and helmets vary, often adorned with symbols whose meaning continues to elude researchers. Evidence of tool marks provides hints of the painstaking techniques used, while the absence of large-scale metal implements during the Olmec period raises questions about the methods employed. These sculptures testify to ingenuity, patience, and a societal commitment to preserving the visage of power. Using 3D scanning and digital modelling, recent studies have revealed that subtle asymmetries in the faces were likely intentional, designed to convey realism and individual personality rather than idealized uniformity. These minute variations suggest that the Olmecs had a nuanced understanding of human physiognomy, carefully capturing traits that distinguished one ruler from another. By combining artistic skill with a systematic approach to proportion, the sculptors created figures that were at once symbolic and distinctly personal, bridging the line between art and historical record. Moving these giants across rugged terrain would have required remarkable coordination and knowledge of physics. Scholars have proposed rafts, rollers and sleds, yet none fully account for the sheer weight and distance involved. Some heads were relocated dozens of kilometres from their source quarries, suggesting a society capable of organising labour and logistics on an impressive scale. The challenge of transportation is matched only by the precision of placement at ceremonial centres, where alignment with plazas, mounds or other ritual spaces hints at deliberate planning. The effort invested in moving and positioning these sculptures reflects both reverence for the figures they depict and the socio-political power required to mobilise such projects. Authority etched into stone speaks volumes about the Olmec's conception of rulership. Each head embodies individual leadership while simultaneously asserting collective power through monumental scale. These figures likely symbolised not only the rulers themselves, but also the strength and stability of the communities they governed. The artistic choices, the exaggeration of certain features, the imposing size, the intricate headdresses were deliberate, crafting an image meant to impress both subjects and rivals. Beyond mere portraiture, the heads are statements of societal structure, memory and hierarchy, projecting influence far beyond the lifetimes of the individuals represented. Reflections ripple across time when these sculptures are compared with later Mesoamerican art and architecture. Colossal depictions of rulers recur among the Maya, Zapotec and other civilizations, suggesting a lasting visual language of authority inspired directly or indirectly by the Olmecs. The repetition of specific facial traits, proportions and ceremonial symbols indicates cultural continuity and the persistence of aesthetic conventions. Yet differences also appear, pointing to local adaptations and reinterpretations of rulership imagery. The heads stand as the earliest known expressions of a tradition that would echo throughout Mesoamerican history, linking memory, art and political power in enduring ways. Bright pigments, reinforced possibly with organic compounds, can still be detected on some heads, their surfaces bearing traces of environmental wear. Evidence of ceremonial wear, such as soot or residue from offerings, implies that the heads played an active role in ritual life, not merely standing as static monuments. These findings suggest that the Olmec colossal heads functioned as both enduring memorials and dynamic participants in the spiritual and political ceremonies of their communities, further underscoring their cultural significance. Eternal gaze marks these sculptures with presence and enigma. Even as erosion softens edges and centuries pass, the faces continue to command attention, staring across time with silent authority. Despite ongoing study, questions linger. Who were the individuals portrayed, and why were they immortalized in stone? How did a civilization without iron tools achieve such technical mastery? And why do these heads convey not just identity, but the aura of power, as if infused with the spirits of the rulers themselves? The Olmec colossal heads endure as sentinels of a civilization partially lost, leaving observers to ponder what secrets might still be hidden beneath the surface of the earth and the weight of history. On the ancient stones, the faces remain, watching silently, their kings long forgotten yet lingering in memory. The Dendera light, the illumination of the ancients. Sparks ignite along the carved walls of the Hathor temple, twisting through stone as if frozen in a moment of ritual energy. Tubes coil around figures, and elongated shapes stretch between human forms and enigmatic bulbs, creating the illusion of motion captured in stone. The carvings pulse with a quiet intensity, suggesting not mere decoration but the manifestation of power, energy, or illumination long forgotten. Every line, curve, and spiral hints at a knowledge that bridges the visible and the invisible, leaving observers to wonder whether the reliefs are symbolic, functional, or both. Their intricate forms draw the eye in a continuous journey, as if the carvings themselves were designed to move attention along a hidden narrative embedded in the walls. Forms coil around the central figures, connecting hands, objects, and what appear to be rods or tubes, forming sequences that some researchers interpret as flows of energy. The human and animal figures are not passive. Their gestures, postures, and interactions suggest participation in a ritual process. their expressions caught between reverence and action. Symbols that resemble modern bulbs, wiring, or filament-like structures provoke questions about whether the Egyptians conceived of light not only metaphorically, but as a tangible force within sacred spaces. Each relief differs slightly from the next, implying that the artisans encoded distinct episodes or variations on a theme, creating a narrative that unfolds across the temple chamber rather than within a single frame. Glints reveal subtle details, traces of pigment and carving depth that amplify the sense of volume and flow. Sunlight, entering through carefully positioned openings, illuminates certain coils at precise times of day, hinting at intentional alignment and interaction with natural light. Shadows stretch along the walls, enhancing the three-dimensionality of the forms and reinforcing the impression of movement. This interplay between light, shadow, and carved structure suggests that the temple itself was designed to animate the reliefs, producing shifting patterns that might have intensified ritual experience. While mainstream Egyptologists caution against interpreting the reliefs as literal technology, the sophistication of design indicates more than a mere symbolic artistry. Hidden symbols etched into the reliefs hint at numerical and geometric patterns that may have guided the Egyptians' understanding of light and energy. Concentric circles, repeated coils, and angular alignments appear to follow a deliberate scheme, possibly encoding principles of measurement or proportionality used in ritual contexts. Some researchers propose that these patterns reflect a sophisticated conceptual framework, linking the flow of energy to cosmological cycles or ceremonial timing. By studying these hidden elements, scholars can glimpse a layer of intention that adds both technical and spiritual depth to the carvings, revealing that their design may have been as much about precision as it was about symbolism. Interpretations vary, and debate persists over the meaning of the images. Some propose that the reliefs depict mythological events, representing divine energy flowing through the gods and into the earthly realm. Others argue for a technological reading, suggesting that the coils and bulbs encode knowledge of electricity or some form of artificial illumination, a theory that has sparked controversy and fascination outside academic circles. Archaeological evidence for functioning electrical devices is lacking, yet the visual language of the carvings is unusually suggestive, prompting questions that standard iconography cannot fully answer. The ambiguity invites speculation without permitting certainty, maintaining the tension between explanation and enigma. Energy pulses through the interactions of figure and object, reflecting Egyptian cosmology and the belief that divine forces could manifest in tangible ways. Hathor, the goddess of light, music, and fertility, anchors these sequences, her presence linking human, divine, and possibly technological aspects of the carvings. Ritual implements, braids, and coils converge in gestures that may have symbolized the transmission of power, illumination, or life force, merging art with ceremonial function. This convergence suggests that the reliefs were designed not only to convey narrative or symbolism, but to evoke participation, to make energy perceptible to those performing or witnessing the rites. Organic compounds and pigments, faintly preserved on the relief surfaces, point to the likelihood that the carvings were enhanced with additional media, including oils or incense. Experiments have shown that certain substances could have amplified the reflections of sunlight within the coils, producing a subtle glow or shimmer that would have accentuated the depiction of energy. These findings imply that the Dendera light was not solely a visual narrative, but potentially a multisensory experience, combining sculpture, light, and ritual substances to convey divine illumination in ways that remain only partially understood. An intentional rhythm or code seems embedded in the temple's walls, where patterns repeat with subtle variations. The placement of each figure, the angle of each tube, and the proportion of coils may have followed principles of geometry, proportion, or timing that amplified the visual and symbolic effect. Connections between the Dendera reliefs and other Egyptian motifs, light rays, serpentine forms, and cosmic symbols underscore continuity in Egyptian thinking about energy, life, and divine power. Even centuries later, these patterns continue to engage observers, challenging interpretations and provoking a sense of awe at the sophistication of their creators. Their sequence of figures, coils, and tubes resists definitive explanation, leaving the carvings suspended between art and enigma. Scholars and enthusiasts alike are drawn into the tension between empirical study and imagination, examining every line for clues while recognizing that the full purpose may never be known. The reliefs suggest a civilization capable of encoding abstract knowledge in stone, merging the sacred with the technical, the symbolic with the practical. As light shifts through the chamber, the images seem to awaken, momentarily animating the walls with the power and presence of a ritual long past. Silence lingers, leaving the temple and its illumination suspended between understanding and the unknown. The Gate of the Sun, the portal of Tiwanaku. Centuries watch as the monolithic arch rises from the high plains of Bolivia, its presence at once commanding and silent. Carved from a single block of stone, the Gate of the Sun has endured centuries of sun, wind and frost, standing as a sentinel over the Tiwanaku civilization that once thrived nearby. From the moment of its creation, the monument has borne witness to the passage of time, observing the cycles of harvest, the shifting of rulers, and the quiet erosion of the world around it. Each crease and contour on its surface reflects not only the skill of its creators, but also the relentless imprint of history, a history that whispers through the valleys and over the plains. Travellers, pilgrims, and explorers have all paused before it, sensing the weight of human effort and the enigmatic purpose embedded in its carvings. The gate is more than stone. It is a living archive, preserving fragments of a worldview long vanished yet still echoing across the ages. Hands shaped the intricate reliefs that dominate the gate's face, depicting figures entwined with symbols, rays, and abstract patterns. The artisans who laboured here sought to encode meaning in every line, using stone as both canvas and vessel. Each figure appears deliberate, a record of identity, power, or divine encounter. Unlike mere decoration, these carvings demand attention, their scale and complexity suggesting that the gate was intended to impress and instruct simultaneously. The precision with which the symbols are etched implies not only artistic mastery, but also an understanding of proportion, geometry, and narrative rhythm. Labourers may have laboured for months or years, guided by skilled visionaries who conceived the monument as a bridge between human and divine. In every groove, every angular projection, one can sense intention, a desire to communicate across time, to leave a message intelligible only to those who could decipher it. The hands that shaped the gate left behind more than images. They left a fragment of thought, philosophy, and ritual encoded in stone. Stone whispers of cosmic order and celestial cycles, for the reliefs are not random. Figures with sun rays, winged motifs, and interconnected symbols seem to tell a story that stretches beyond the human lifespan, suggesting knowledge of astronomy and temporal rhythm. Scholars have speculated that the gate may encode solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events, though no single interpretation has achieved consensus. The carvings may have functioned as a calendar, a ceremonial guide, or a symbolic map linking the terrestrial and the divine. Even centuries after the Tiwanaku civilization faded, the stone continues to speak, inviting modern observers to interpret its language and intent. Its messages are layered. Political authority, spiritual significance, and cosmic alignment intertwine within each carved element. The stone holds the memory of a society that understood the stars and their influence on earthly life, though the full meaning remains tantalizingly beyond reach. Erosion traces reveal the passage of time, altering both the gate and its interpretations. Natural weathering has softened edges, worn down surfaces, and blurred the clarity of certain symbols, leaving gaps that challenge comprehension. Human interaction has also left its mark. Scratches, inscriptions, and undocumented relocations that complicate understanding. Each generation has projected its own meaning onto the gate, reading the carvings through lenses of mythology, archaeology, or personal imagination. What was once a functional or ceremonial artifact becomes a palimpsest of culture and interpretation, layered with centuries of speculation. The interplay between permanence and change enhances the mystery. While the gate has endured, its message is never static, continually reframed by time, context, and perception. These traces are not simply damage, they are part of the monument's story, reflecting how civilizations interact with their monuments and how memory itself is sculpted by human hands. Persisting through centuries, legends of the gate are woven into the oral histories and mythologies of the Andes. It is said that the carvings depict the sun god, or a pantheon of deities controlling the cycles of light and time, though the precise identities remain uncertain. Myths describe openings in the stone through which divine energy might flow, or portals to other worlds, interpretations that inspire both awe and skepticism. The gate functions as a cultural anchor, a symbol of the Tiwanaku's connection to the cosmos and to their own collective identity. These stories endure in local memory, preserved even as written records have vanished. Travellers, researchers, and dreamers alike have speculated on the interplay between the carvings and celestial events, seeking to uncover the knowledge that the Tiwanaku may have encoded in stone. The monument's legend is inseparable from its physical presence, each reinforcing the other and both resisting full comprehension. Knowledge lingers in the stones of the gate, a reminder that even the most carefully carved messages may remain partially concealed. Modern study, through archaeology, astronomy, and comparative mythology, offers insight yet cannot unravel every secret. The alignment, symbolism, and artistry suggest intentional design of extraordinary sophistication, but the full purpose, whether astronomical, ceremonial, or philosophical, remains elusive. Visitors often leave with more questions than answers, sensing that the gate is both a relic and a riddle, bridging ancient and modern thought. Every shadow, every weathered line, every carved figure hints at lost understanding, reminding us that human history contains layers of knowledge we have yet to decode. The gate does not yield its meaning easily. It invites reflection, study, and imagination in equal measure. Around the portal, time itself seems to bend, its true purpose remaining perhaps forever beyond understanding. The Ubaid figurines, the reptilian statues of prehistory. Eyes widen at the first glimpse of the Ubaid figurines, small yet commanding figures unearthed from the ancient settlements of Mesopotamia. Their heads stretch unnaturally, elongated beyond the proportions of any human skull, and their eyes, often wide and almond-shaped, seem to peer into realms beyond ordinary perception. There is something distinctly alien about them, a quality that has both fascinated and unsettled those who study them. Unlike other prehistoric sculptures, the Ubaid figurines do not simply replicate human forms, they distort, exaggerate, and abstract, transforming the familiar into the enigmatic. Each figure seems alive with suggestion, inviting speculation about the intentions of its creators and the forces they sought to capture or represent. Their small size belies the potency of their presence, a quiet intensity that defies explanation and lingers long after the initial encounter. Forms twist in ways that confound expectation. The heads taper sharply, the faces flattened, and the torsos reduced to minimalistic shapes, sometimes with delicate hands or feet barely suggested. Reptilian features emerge subtly, scale-like patterns, elongated necks, and sinuous limbs that blur the boundary between human and non-human. These abstracted qualities evoke creatures both familiar and foreign, beings that belong simultaneously to imagination and to some forgotten reality. Every curve and angle of the figurines seems deliberate, as if each distortion was carefully measured to communicate meaning or power that remains undeciphered. The choice of clay, the smoothing of surfaces, and the attention to tiny details all suggest purposeful artistry, yet no known function, ritual, representation, or tool can be conclusively identified. Observers cannot help but feel that the figures embody knowledge lost to time, a secret understood fully only by those who shaped them. Origins vanish into the mists of prehistory. The Ubaid culture, active around 5000 to 4000 BCE, left few written records, and the precise context of these figurines remains elusive. Some were found in domestic settings, others in communal spaces, yet no clear pattern emerges that explains their placement or significance. Archaeologists can date the clay and trace the firing techniques, but the deeper questions of purpose and inspiration remain unanswered. Were these figures meant to represent deities, mythological beings, or some hybrid of human and animal forms? Did they serve as ritual intermediaries, educational symbols, or protective talismans? Each discovery seems to deepen the mystery, suggesting a civilization with sophisticated symbolic thinking, yet leaving modern scholars grasping at incomplete evidence. The figurines exist as fragments of thought, cultural whispers whose full meaning has vanished beneath layers of time and decay. Materials reveal another layer of mystery, for chemical analysis of the clay and pigments used in some figurines suggests a deliberate selection of minerals that were rare or difficult to source. Traces of ochre, iron compounds, and organic additives hint at a sophisticated understanding of durability, colour, and texture, indicating that the Ubaid artisans were not only shaping forms, but also manipulating substances to achieve specific effects. Such choices may have enhanced the figurine's visual impact during rituals, or they could reflect symbolic associations between material and meaning, connecting the figures to natural or spiritual forces. The interplay between material, shape and context adds depth to the mystery, suggesting that every element, from clay composition to finish, was intentionally designed to communicate something now lost to time. Meaning shifts depending on who observes them. Some theorists interpret the figurines as evidence of early religious imagination, reflecting a society grappling with forces beyond its understanding. Others, noting the unusual and anatomical features, have speculated on external influence or encounters with unknown phenomena, though these ideas remain controversial. The figures resist definitive explanation, their ambiguity deliberately, or perhaps unknowingly, preserved by the Ubaid artisans. Each person who studies them projects their own assumptions, from anthropological to mystical, yet none can claim certainty. The figurines occupy a liminal space between history and myth, science and speculation, human intention and the unconscious, their purpose slipping like sand through fingers. What they signify may have been clear to their creators, but for us, the message is fractured, tantalizing, and eternally incomplete. Perception lingers long after the clay has been handled and the museum display lights dimmed. There is a subtle unease that accompanies prolonged observation, a feeling that these small forms carry more than physical presence. They transmit something conceptual, emotional, or even cognitive. Perhaps the Ubaid figurines were intended to provoke thought, fear, or awe in those who encountered them, encoding psychological effects as deliberately as physical forms. The abstraction in their anatomy, the alien quality of their features, and the seeming randomness of their sizes and shapes combine to create a tension between recognition and strangeness. Modern viewers may sense a faint echo of ritual power or symbolic authority emanating from the clay, an almost imperceptible resonance that transcends millennia. In this, the figurines demonstrate a mastery not merely of craft, but of perception itself, shaping the minds of observers in ways still unmeasurable. Silence remains around the true nature of the Ubaid figurines. Despite decades of archaeological research, study and speculation, their significance endures as a mystery. Their creation, intention, and function remain unconfirmed, leaving them suspended in a space between the tangible and the unknowable. Each figurine is a testament to human imagination at a time when writing and formalized records were absent, a material manifestation of ideas, beliefs, and perhaps experiences that no longer have a voice. Scholars and enthusiasts alike continue to debate their meaning, yet none can claim to fully unravel the secret encoded in clay. These small figures carry an aura of enigma that refuses closure, challenging every assumption about the capabilities and consciousness of prehistoric peoples. Somewhere within the Ubaid figurines, a story is held that humanity has not yet deciphered. The Pillar of Delhi, metal that defies time. With silent authority, a single iron shaft rises in the heart of Delhi, drawing the gaze of all who pass. Standing over 7 meters tall, its smooth surface glimmers faintly in the sun, hinting at the extraordinary care taken during its forging. Unlike stone monuments that mark territory or commemorate rulers, this pillar seems to proclaim something far subtler, a mastery of material, a triumph of human skill, and a message that has survived centuries of exposure without surrendering its essence. Visitors often pause in awe, observing the seamless length of iron and the delicate inscriptions that spiral along its surface. Even under the harsh glare of daylight, the metal seems to retain a muted luster, as though it resists not just corrosion but the passage of time itself. The column commands attention not through grandiosity but through precision and endurance, a testament to human ingenuity that continues to inspire wonder and speculation. Iron endures in defiance of nature's forces. Monsoon rains, heat and humidity have washed over the pillar for more than 16 centuries, yet rust, a constant companion of iron, has scarcely touched it. The surface maintains its integrity, its metal unyielding, uncorroded and unexpectedly resistant. Scholars and metallurgists alike are puzzled, for no other iron structure from antiquity exhibits such preservation without modern protective coatings. The pillar's longevity challenges conventional understanding of corrosion and metallurgy, raising questions about ancient techniques that seem almost lost to history. Even the inscriptions, etched deep into its sides, remain sharp and legible, suggesting that the creators not only forged iron but manipulated it in ways that anticipated the chemical forces of time itself. Rain, wind, and human hands have tested its surface repeatedly, yet it remains unbowed, an enduring enigma in a city that has changed beyond recognition around it. Tantalizing details about its composition are revealed through careful analysis. Studies reveal a surprisingly high phosphorus content, an element that likely contributes to the metal's resilience. The microstructure of the iron indicates controlled forging, repeated heating, and careful cooling, processes that suggest a sophisticated understanding of metallurgy, well beyond the common knowledge of its era. Some researchers propose that the iron was smelted with particular ores or additives to enhance its durability, a technique that implies experimental skill and intentional design. Every measurement, every chemical trace, points toward deliberate engineering, as if the pillar's creators had foreseen the centuries it would endure. Modern science can replicate aspects of the process, but the exact methods, timing, and craftsmanship remain partially obscured, leaving an enduring puzzle that continues to baffle experts in materials science and archaeology alike. Skill amazes in every inch of the pillar. The inscriptions, composed in ancient Sanskrit, are executed with elegance and precision that belie the limitations of the tools available at the time. Each character spirals seamlessly along the cylindrical surface, suggesting artisans capable of remarkable control over both the metal and their instruments. The uniformity of the column's shape, the smoothness of its surface, and the resilience of its structure indicate a level of technical sophistication that rivals later industrial ironworks. The pillar embodies a union of science and art, a creation that is functional, aesthetic, and durable. Its presence alone suggests an understanding of not only metallurgy but also physics, weight distribution, and environmental endurance. Knowledge that modern engineers still study for insight into ancient mastery. The scale of foresight and skill embedded in the pillar challenges assumptions about technological capabilities in early medieval India. Tradition surrounds the pillar, embedding it within the spiritual and political life of its era. Believed to have been erected during the reign of Chandragupta II in the 4th century CE, it was associated with the worship of Vishnu and the assertion of imperial authority. Its inscriptions celebrate both religious devotion and political power, merging the sacred and the administrative in a single enduring structure. Pilgrims, rulers, and common citizens alike would have perceived it as both a divine symbol and a reminder of worldly order. The pillar's placement, inscriptions, and sheer presence suggest intentionality, a creation meant to convey permanence, to command respect, and to embody a civilization's knowledge and values. Even as empires fell and cities rose around it, the pillar remained, a witness to shifting traditions and the endurance of cultural memory. Some legends suggest that the pillar was deliberately designed to align with celestial or seasonal events, though no definitive pattern has been confirmed, leaving its symbolic significance partially shrouded. Mystery remains around the iron pillar, a challenge to both historians and scientists. Its survival without modern treatment, its precise chemical composition, and the methods of its forging continue to provoke debate. Scholars study its inscriptions, analyze its metal, and simulate its forging, yet no complete answer emerges. The pillar endures as a monument to ingenuity and as a riddle from the past, bridging human creativity and natural forces in a manner that seems deliberately designed to endure. Modern observers can measure, describe, and speculate, but the full depth of its construction, purpose, and technological context remains partially concealed, as if the pillar itself is guarding its secrets. Its steadfast presence, untouched by time yet quietly asserting the skill of those who raised it, continues to fascinate anyone who approaches it. No explanation can fully account for the pillar's defiance of time. The Pumapunku stones, precision of the impossible. Explorers arrived at Pumapunku with an expectation of ruins, yet they were confronted by something far more perplexing. Massive stone blocks lay scattered across a flat plateau near the Tiwanaku complex in Bolivia, some weighing tens of tons, their edges cut with precision that seemed impossible for a civilization without iron tools. Archaeologists and adventurers alike found themselves pausing, tracing the stone's sharp edges with hands and instruments, marvelling at the intricacy of the joints. The site stretched as far as the eye could see, each block a fragment of a puzzle whose assembly and purpose defied conventional explanation. Angles reveal a sophistication that confounds the imagination. Stones were beveled with right angles, channels cut with millimetre-level precision, and surfaces planed with astonishing smoothness. Many blocks feature intricate notches, dovetails, and tongue and groove connections that suggest they were designed to fit together like components of a colossal mechanism. Such precision implies measurement and calculation on a scale rarely associated with pre-Columbian cultures. Even the largest blocks, some measuring over 5 meters in length, maintain tolerances so exact that modern engineers pause in disbelief. Scholars often note that the uniformity of these cuts implies a standardized method of measurement, but the specifics of that system remain unknown. Faltering at every turn, attempts to replicate the work reveal its elusive nature. Using bronze chisels, stone hammers, and cordage, experimental archaeologists have attempted to duplicate the cuts and transport the stones, yet the results fall short. Even with modern steel tools, reproducing the sharp edges and interlocking precision of Pumapunku's blocks proves challenging. Transporting massive stones across uneven terrain, carving them to exact specifications, and arranging them in a coherent layout would have required extraordinary coordination and planning. Each failed attempt reinforces the notion that the builders possessed techniques and knowledge lost to time, and that the sophistication of their methods surpasses what scholars once considered achievable for the era. Calculations indicate an advanced comprehension of geometry and proportion. Measurements reveal standardized units of length embedded in the stones, suggesting a system of metrology that enabled consistent design across the site. Many blocks appear to have been laid out according to principles of symmetry and modular design, with interlocking features intended to stabilize structures against shifting or collapse. Some researchers propose that angles and joints were calculated to accommodate the forces of weight and leverage, a consideration more commonly associated with modern engineering. The astonishing uniformity across scattered blocks points to meticulous planning and a level of mathematical understanding unexpected for the time period. Granite whispers secrets of endurance and selection, and the materials chosen for Pumapunku, particularly the dense andesite and red sandstone, had to be transported from distant sources, far from the site itself. Some blocks were transported from quarries several kilometers away, implying knowledge of logistics and heavy lifting far beyond what is documented elsewhere in the region. The surfaces of the stones, polished to near perfection, suggest a painstaking process repeated many times to achieve smoothness that resists erosion even after a millennium. Evidence of quarry marks and partial grooves indicates that the builders employed careful staging, possibly shaping stones at multiple locations before assembly. Each block reflects a combination of raw power and subtlety, a dual mastery that continues to elude modern replication. Engineering astonishes in the interlocking mechanisms. Some stones feature precise channels, sockets, and tongue and groove joints that appear designed to interconnect without mortar, hinting at a level of structural planning unusual for the prehistoric world. The alignment of these features suggests the builders understood load distribution and stability, constructing with foresight that mirrors principles of modern engineering. Interlocking stones of such weight would prevent lateral movement and offer resilience against seismic activity, yet no explicit evidence exists to indicate the techniques used for fitting them so seamlessly. As modern science probes the site, the mystery only deepens. High-resolution surveys, 3D modelling, and chemical analysis provide insight into the stone types, cuts, and alignment, yet they raise more questions than answers. How are stones lifted, moved, and precisely placed without advanced machinery? What tools enabled such clean, geometric cuts into rock, so hard that it would challenge steel instruments? Why did the builders prioritize such exactitude, and what knowledge guided their hands? Even as archaeologists and engineers develop theories, the enigma of Pumapunku persists. The ruins stand as silent testimony to a civilization capable of extraordinary precision, a reminder that human ingenuity can surpass even the expectations of later generations. All speculation fails to grasp its purpose, and the exact function of Pumapunku remains unresolved. Whether ceremonial, structural, or symbolic, it is evident that the builders sought to leave a statement of skill and permanence. The site's careful planning, precise execution, and monumental scale continue to challenge historians and engineers alike. every discovery at the site reinforces both admiration and bafflement, leaving a landscape of questions embedded in stone. In a language of perfection that no living hand has mastered, the stones continue to speak without sound. The Amour burial, the mystery of the red ochre child. Tides wash against the rugged Newfoundland coast, the relentless sea sculpting cliffs and sandy banks over millennia. The landscape is harsh, yet fertile in its own way, dotted with rocky outcrops and sheltered coves that offered refuge to early human communities. In this remote environment, survival demanded knowledge of the seasons, the tides, and the animals that roamed both land and sea. It was here, amid the interplay of wind, water, and rock, that a burial emerged, hidden for thousands of years beneath layers of soil, sediment, and memory. The location itself, exposed yet protective, suggests a deliberate choice, a place where the living could honour the dead while remaining in proximity to the rhythms of life along the coast. With meticulous care, archaeologists peeled back centuries of sediment to reveal the delicate arrangement beneath the site. What they uncovered was a child no more than 3 years old, lying carefully in a shallow pit, the body coated in a fine layer of red ochre. The pigment, vivid even after millennia, clung to the bones and surrounding soil, its presence hinting at ritual practices far older than previously documented in the region. The grave itself was simple, yet intentional. The positioning of the limbs and the distribution of ochre indicated a careful, considered placement rather than hasty interment. Soil analysis revealed low acidity, contributing to the remarkable preservation of the bones, while nearby organic matter provided clues about seasonal occupation patterns of the community that had left the child here. Remains indicate a fragile life lived in a challenging environment. Examination of the skeleton revealed subtle traces of growth and development, signs of both health and vulnerability. The teeth, remarkably preserved, told a story of a diet rich in marine resources, while small wear patterns on the long bones suggested regular movement through rugged terrain. Researchers found no evidence of violent trauma, pointing toward natural causes, though the precise circumstances of death remain elusive. Analysis of isotopes and microwear on bones hints at seasonal migrations and subsistence strategies, suggesting that the child's community was adept at navigating the harsh coastal landscape. In this way, the remains connect not only to a single life, but to the broader story of human adaptation at the edge of the North Atlantic. Crimson pigment imbues the burial with a sense of ritual and intention. Red ochre, sourced from distant deposits, covered the child's body and some surrounding stones, a deliberate act whose symbolism is still debated. In many prehistoric contexts, ochre signifies blood, life, or rebirth, a marker of respect for the dead or a protective measure for the spirit in the afterlife. The careful application at Longyou suggests that even the youngest member of the community was regarded with ceremonial importance. The use of pigment combined with the orientation of the body, aligned along specific landscape features, reveals a symbolic understanding of place, death, and the forces of nature. It is a silent testament to a cognitive complexity previously unimagined for this region during the late Mesolithic. The child's burial appears to have been integrated into a broader, carefully planned ritual landscape, as suggested by subtle traces in the surrounding area. Soil samples revealed post holes and faint hearth remnants nearby, indicating that the site may have been visited repeatedly for ceremonies or seasonal gatherings. Small stone alignments hint at markers or pathways leading to the grave, possibly designed to guide participants or honour the child's passage. These subtle features provide insight into the social and spiritual framework of the community, hinting at a level of planning and reverence that elevates the burial beyond mere interment into a structured ritual expression. Experts debate the implications of the burial. Radiocarbon dating places the child's interment around 7,500 years ago, a time when seafaring and coastal settlement were just beginning to emerge in northeastern North America. The rarity of burials in this area, combined with the use of ochre, suggests that this was not merely a casual practice but part of a structured social or spiritual tradition. Questions abound. Did the child belong to a nomadic fishing group or a more permanent coastal settlement? Were similar practices common but lost to erosion and time? The absence of accompanying grave goods adds to the mystery, raising the possibility that the ritual significance lay not in objects but in the careful positioning and colouring of the body itself. The wind carries whispers of millennia as it sweeps across the exposed coastline, teasing the imagination with the lives that once moved through this landscape. Every fossilised footprint, stone tool, and buried human tells a fragment of the story, yet the child at Amour remains enigmatic, a single point of contact between the present and a past that is largely inaccessible. Observers cannot help but wonder what stories, beliefs, or fears led to the creation of this extraordinary burial. The juxtaposition of fragility and permanence, the delicate body preserved in the harsh elements, creates an unsettling tension, a reminder that human intention can outlast even the most unforgiving environment. In the intersection of earth, sea, and human memory, the red ochre child lies both known and unknowable, a silent witness to a civilization's understanding of life, death, and the sacred. Though time records dates and layers, it cannot unveil the child's secrets hidden within the crimson dust. The Uffington White Horse, the figure etched in the hills. From the foothills, the landscape unfolds in a series of gentle rises and shallow valleys, the rolling greenery occasionally interrupted by the stark white of exposed chalk. At first glance, the contours of the Uffington White Horse appear almost abstract, a vague impression etched into the hillside. As one ascends, the figure begins to emerge with startling clarity, each curve and line revealing an intentionality that seems at once both monumental and intimate. The hill itself shapes the perception of the carving, with angles, shadows, and elevation subtly manipulating scale. Walking the slope, the viewer becomes acutely aware of the interplay between human craftsmanship and natural topography, realizing that the figure was designed not merely as an object but as a performance in space. Above the undulating hills, the White Horse takes on a different presence. Viewed from a distance or from higher vantage points, its form stretches across the landscape with a fluidity that contrasts the rigid geometric expectations of stone or sculpture. Seasonal changes in light and shadow alter the figure's appearance, sometimes causing it to blend seamlessly into the hillside, other times making it gleam with stark clarity against the green or winter-bare earth. Such perceptual variability suggests a deliberate awareness on the part of its creators, an understanding that the figure's impact could be manipulated through the observer's perspective. Even clouds and mist play a role, softening the outline or creating a fleeting aura that renders the horse simultaneously tangible and ethereal. Chalk surfaces reveal subtle traces of human maintenance and the effects of centuries of erosion. Excavation and restoration efforts have exposed tool marks, compacted soil layers, and areas where fresh chalk has been added to preserve the figure's clarity. Yet, despite these interventions, natural processes continue to shape the horse, slowly rounding edges, filling grooves, and altering the overall perception of scale and detail. Small fissures in the chalk hint at geological shifts over millennia, reminding observers that this creation is both resilient and impermanent. The physicality of the carving, the contrast between bright chalk and dark vegetation, the texture beneath one's fingertips, emphasizes the tangible connection between human hands and landscape, a connection that endures even when the original makers are long gone. Stories persist around the White Horse, threading folklore and historical interpretation into the perception of the site. Medieval manuscripts, local legend, and oral tradition have described it as a talismanic figure, a warrior emblem, or even a supernatural steed that appears at times of extraordinary portent. Scholars and storytellers alike have debated its function. Was it a territorial marker, a ceremonial emblem, or a representation of a deity? While no definitive evidence settles the question, these cultural layers underscore the figure's enduring resonance. Each generation of observers has projected its own meanings onto the horse, layering interpretation atop physical form, so that the figure is at once a prehistoric artifact and a living symbol within human imagination. Scientific inquiry has provided partial clarity amid the uncertainty. Radiocarbon dating of nearby settlement layers and soil analysis suggests that the carving originates in the late Bronze Age, around 3,000 years ago, yet the methods employed by its creators remain largely unknown. Archaeologists have examined the slope, chalk composition, and adjacent structures, seeking to understand both how the figure was produced and why this specific location was chosen. Despite advanced surveying techniques, many aspects remain elusive: the precise tools used, the labour organisation, and the symbolic system underpinning its proportions. These unanswered questions preserve the figure's enigmatic quality, reinforcing the sense that human intention and environmental context are inextricably linked in ways that continue to defy complete understanding. Silent contours of the White Horse continue to engage observers, revealing new dimensions with each visit and changing season. Viewed from the modern road, from the valley below, or from the heights above, the figure communicates differently depending on perspective, time of day, and atmospheric conditions. Its lines, carved in chalk, interact with the sun, wind, and rain, casting shadows that exaggerate or soften curves. Even when partially obscured by fog or winter frost, the figure asserts its presence, commanding attention and inviting speculation. This interplay between human intention, natural forces, and observer perception creates a living dialogue across millennia, where the figure is at once object, symbol, and experience. In every angle and light, the Uffington White Horse remains a silent performer on the hillside, a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring power of visual language. This leaves the observer to wonder how an image conceived in prehistory continues to shape imagination and perception today. Generations may pass, but the horse's form will endure, visible yet unknowable, a white emblem that bridges the human past and the shifting landscape of time. The Skara Brae settlement, the stone village without time. Stone by stone, the settlement emerges from the Orkney landscape as if it has grown from the earth itself. Each carefully fitted wall, each low doorway speaks of a deliberate architectural vision, one that has endured for millennia against wind, rain, and the relentless push of time. The houses are partially subterranean, burrowed into the ground to provide warmth and protection, yet their precise alignment and uniformity hint at an understanding of both community and environment that seems impossibly advanced for the Neolithic era. To approach Skara Brae is to sense the weight of human intention pressed into every stone, to feel the presence of lives lived long before written records, and to realise that this village is a tangible thread connecting the distant past to the present. In quiet corners, traces of daily life linger as if the inhabitants had only stepped away. Hearths blackened by fire, storage pits lined with stone, and the occasional fragment of pottery offer a glimpse into routines that were at once ordinary and remarkable. Children may have played among the stone beds, while elders observed the sea beyond, yet the evidence of these intimate moments survives only in subtle impressions on walls and floors. Even without names or faces, these spaces convey stories. The care taken to construct storage areas, the repetition of domestic patterns, and the rhythm of life that persisted despite the harsh climate of Orkney. Each fragment, each smooth surface, is a silent testament to a community that thrived in a remote and unforgiving environment. Hands shaped every element of the village, chiselling slabs of local stone to fit snugly into walls and pathways. The precision of the construction reveals knowledge of geometry, load distribution, and cooperative labour. Doorways are deliberately low, perhaps to conserve heat or signal boundaries within the village. While stone furniture is integrated seamlessly into the architecture, these choices reflect not only functional considerations, but also social organisation, implying a system of shared responsibility and cultural norms that guided construction. Observing these details, one understands that the labour was not random. It was coordinated, purposeful, and imbued with an understanding of both the material and the human. Sediment layers in and around Skara Brae preserve a chronological record that speaks quietly but insistently. Soil deposits, midden heaps, and the accumulation of detritus reveal cycles of habitation and abandonment, the ebb and flow of human presence over centuries. Stratigraphic analysis shows repeated maintenance and occasional modifications, suggesting that the village was not static but evolved with the needs of its inhabitants. Environmental factors, storm surges, shifting soils, and seasonal winds interacted with human effort, requiring constant adaptation. Through these layers, archaeologists have been able to reconstruct aspects of diet, resource management, and domestic life, yet much remains elusive. The very soil seems to guard its secrets, offering insight while withholding the full narrative of the people who once lived there. Objects linger within the spaces, each one a fragment of culture frozen in stone. Flint knives, bone tools, and ornaments hint at trade, craftsmanship, and aesthetic sensibilities that flourished alongside practical needs. Their placement within homes, carefully arranged on shelves or in alcoves, suggests both utility and an awareness of permanence. These items offer fleeting glimpses of beliefs and practices, perhaps a ritual significance, a communal tradition, or simply an attachment to familiar objects. Yet the meaning of these artifacts remains largely speculative, creating a tension between what can be observed and what can only be imagined. Every discovery adds depth to understanding but also raises new questions, reinforcing the sense that Skara Brae was a world of subtle complexity. Through the ages, the village has remained remarkably intact, its stone walls withstanding the erosion that has erased so many other Neolithic sites. The continuity of preservation allows modern observers to walk through the settlement and imagine the lives contained within each space, yet it also amplifies the sense of mystery. How did this community flourish in isolation, sustain itself against environmental pressures, and yet vanish, leaving the village undisturbed for centuries? The juxtaposition of clarity and ambiguity, the ability to see the physical layout in detail but not know the stories behind it, imbues Skara Brae with a haunting quality. The settlement is both tangible and elusive, inviting study while resisting complete understanding, a place where human presence is felt but never fully revealed. In Skara Brae, stone houses whisper of lives meticulously arranged, yet forever inaccessible, each step along the narrow pathways carrying echoes of generations whose presence time cannot fully reveal. The Goseck Circle, the first observatory. At sunrise, the plains of Sacsayhuaman reveal a subtle rhythm in the earth, a circular formation whose purpose remained hidden for millennia. The sun, rising along the horizon, illuminates shallow ditches and the remnants of wooden palisades, casting long shadows that trace the alignment of gates positioned with remarkable precision. From a distance, the Goseck Circle appears as a simple ring in the soil, yet every contour, every arc is deliberate. The landscape itself seems to pulse with intention, inviting observers to witness the passage of days, months, and seasons through a design conceived by people long before calendars or written records existed. Encircled by ditches, the settlement-like formation comprises two concentric rings, each punctuated by carefully placed entrances that frame the solstices. Archaeologists have noted that these gates do not merely mark openings, but function as portals, channels for light to intersect with Earth at precise angles. The geometry of the circle demonstrates not only an understanding of spatial relationships, but also the ability to predict astronomical events with extraordinary accuracy. Scholars continue to marvel at how Neolithic builders could translate abstract knowledge of the heavens into a terrestrial structure, merging science and ritual in ways that resonate through the ages. When light strikes, the solstice sun penetrates the eastern and western gates, illuminating the center of the circle in a display that must have held profound significance for those who constructed it. These alignments suggest a dual purpose, to measure time and to connect human activity with the cycles of the natural world. The phenomenon would have marked critical points in the agricultural calendar, signalling the best moments for planting and harvesting, and may also have served as a stage for ceremonies acknowledging the rhythm of life itself. Observing the light as it travels across the ditches and posts, one imagines the meticulous planning required to coordinate stone, soil, and sun with such precision. Beyond mere observation, the Goseck Circle likely functioned as a communal hub where ritual, social organization, and cosmology intersected. The arrangement of entrances and concentric rings may have reflected a worldview in which human life was inseparable from celestial patterns. Its very design implies hierarchy and participation, suggesting that certain members of the community held specialized knowledge or responsibility for interpreting the movements of the sun. While the circle can be studied in purely architectural or astronomical terms, its enduring allure lies in the suggestion that it was also a space of meaning, ceremony, and human experience entwined with a cosmic order. Fragments remain within and around the circle, offering glimpses into the lives of those who constructed it. Pottery shards, stone tools, and traces of fire pits indicate that the site was not merely symbolic, but actively used, visited repeatedly, and maintained with care. These artifacts, modest in appearance, form a dialogue with the monumental precision of the ditches and gates. suggesting that knowledge of the heavens was inseparable from the practicalities of daily existence. Each fragment, placed in context with the circle itself, raises questions about the people's priorities, beliefs, and the skills they cultivated to align themselves so harmoniously with the movements of the sky. Cycles persist, and the Goseck circle continues to function as a testament to human ingenuity. Its design encodes knowledge that surpasses simple observation, reflecting an understanding of time, light, and spatial relationships that seems almost prescient. Modern visitors can experience the same solstitial alignments, yet the sense of awe is heightened by the absence of written explanation. The people who built it left no record, only the subtle testimony of earth and shadow. It remains a place where the invisible architecture of knowledge meets the tangible, a site in which measurement, ritual, and landscape converge to form a narrative that defies complete comprehension. Across millennia, the circle endures not merely as an artifact of construction, but as a repository of human curiosity, observation, and reverence for the sky. The Neolithic builders inscribed time itself into the landscape, leaving behind a structure that continues to mark the passage of seasons, yet keeps its deeper intentions shrouded in mystery. Each solstice casts the sun along paths precisely calculated, illuminating both the centre and the unanswered questions about those who conceived it. The Goseck circle is at once a calendar, a ceremonial space, and a challenge to anyone seeking to fully understand the minds that shaped it. Time bows to its precision, yet the full purpose of the Goseck circle remains beyond reach, whispering secrets of celestial knowledge that may never be entirely decoded. Gobekli Tepe, the temple that shouldn't exist. Before stone was raised, human thought had already begun to stretch beyond immediate survival. Hunter-gatherers wandering the fertile hills of southeastern Anatolia carried with them the seeds of abstract reasoning, a mind capable of imagining worlds beyond the visible. Gobekli Tepe emerges within this realm of thought, a site where stone is no longer merely material but a canvas for human imagination. The landscape itself seems charged with intention, as if the hills conspired with those who shaped them to record an intelligence that predates written history. Here, cognition crystallized in wood and stone, revealing a complexity of mind that challenges assumptions about what was possible in a world without agriculture. Pillars speak in ways that transcend language, T-shaped monoliths standing sentinel in circular enclosures, each carved with motifs that hint at stories, beliefs, and rituals long vanished. They are neither mere decorations nor utilitarian objects. Instead, they function as vessels of thought, encoding ideas into material form. Some display abstract symbols, others bear the reliefs of animals, lions, snakes, scorpions, figures that carry weight beyond their form. The pillars communicate across millennia, offering glimpses into a symbolic system whose grammar remains elusive, yet whose presence is undeniable. Scholars debate their meaning, but the certainty of intentionality suggests a sophisticated conceptual framework underlying every decision to carve, move, and erect these stones. Within each carving, a universe unfolds. Predators crouch beside serpents, birds hover above abstract motifs, and hands leave imprints as if to claim dominion over ideas as well as matter. The reliefs are not haphazard. They display narrative coherence, rhythm, and spatial awareness. The motifs imply memory, myth, or instruction, yet their exact interpretation is lost. Some argue they reference cosmology, others see ritual enactments, and still others propose a symbolic accounting of human experience. Each visitor to Gobekli Tepe confronts these carvings as remnants of an imagination far removed from their own, a mental map of a society capable of projecting meaning into the stones themselves. Circles of intention define the site as much as its pillars. The enclosures, arranged in concentric rings, create spaces that are simultaneously communal and sacred. These circles frame human activity, designating areas for gatherings, rituals, or observation, and suggest a level of social coordination previously thought impossible for hunter-gatherer communities. Each circle is a thought experiment realized in timber and stone, embodying the abstract reasoning of groups who collaborated on grand scales without settled agriculture. The architecture itself becomes a language of ritual, a vocabulary of social cohesion and spiritual expression, expressed through geometry, space, and alignment. Long before agriculture, the builders of Gobekli Tepe undertook feats that would have required meticulous planning, extraordinary effort, and deep knowledge of material properties. The paradox is unavoidable, a society capable of constructing monumental sites, yet dependent on foraging for subsistence. This inversion of expectations raises questions about the drivers of monumental work. Were these structures intended to unite disparate groups? To mark spiritual landscapes? To experiment with communal organization? Whatever the rationale, Gobekli Tepe demonstrates that symbolic sophistication and monumental ambition emerged in tandem, independent of domestication or settled society. It redefines the chronology of human ingenuity, suggesting that abstract thought and collaborative execution predated and perhaps even enabled the agricultural revolution. Echoes of mind linger in every pillar, every carved animal, and every circle embedded in the hill. Archaeologists excavating the site report a sense of awe akin to encountering a message from the distant past, one not written in words but in thought made tangible. Gobekli Tepe challenges the very frameworks used to interpret prehistory, asking us to consider intelligence, imagination, and social complexity as forces as ancient as humanity itself. Here, the boundary between utility and expression, survival and symbolism, collapses. Time becomes a lens through which we witness a cognitive leap that predates writing, cities, and states, leaving behind a puzzle as complete and precise as it is inscrutable. Defying complete understanding, the site's presence persists even in the present day. Visitors sense the monumental effort and the deliberate orchestration of space, yet the ultimate purpose remains beyond reach. No inscriptions clarify intent, no records survive to explain rituals, and no contemporary accounts describe the society that erected these stones. Gobekli Tepe endures as a testament to the power of thought itself, a place where human imagination etched itself into the earth long before the conveniences of civilization made such acts conceivable. Its pillars rise in silent testimony to minds that imagined, designed, and built with a vision that surpasses the limitations of their era. While time can measure centuries, it cannot gauge the depth of ideas carved into stone.